top 8 matches going on as well. So again, you know, stay tuned here. Twitch.tv/Pokemon also has some battles going on as well. So there's a lot of excitement still to come. I can hear it through this headset, Aaron. That's how loud this crowd is here.
I wonder if the other top 8 match started already. I wish I knew what we're going on, but it sounds really, really exciting. Hopefully we can offer a match that's equally as exciting.
Yeah, and I'm sure this will be, Aaron. I mean, Roberto versus Paul, like this is a good match.
It is.
This
Absolutely.
is a good match, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have more time to talk about it, and we do have the team sheets in front of us. Like, we can kind of break down the matchup before the game actually starts. You know, one of the cool things, as you mentioned, on Paul's team is definitely that Gastrodon. Gastrodon, really good Pokemon. It can hit really hard with the ground DMZ that we've seen on Paul's Gastrodon. That could actually be really good against Roberto's team. Well, you know, the 6 Pokemon on Roberto's team, Kartana, Tapu Fini, Tyranitar, Gengar, Incineroar, and Landorus T. And that Z move can potentially one-shot the Gengar, the Incineroar, even maybe the Tyranitar, depending on how it's trained. Also the Kartana, if you're able to potentially get an attack off against it. Also can take Muddy Waters from that Tapu Fini. But of course, if you're using a Gastrodon, you have to be very, very wary of that Kartana. But Paul does have some pretty good answers against it with a Salamence for Intimidate and his own Incineroar. And Tapu Koko as well, which gets really good damage off.
Over on Paul's side, he's running a team of Tapu Koko, Salamence, Snorlax, Incineroar, Gastrodon, and Kartana. We saw it earlier on stream, but you know, Paul is a pilot. He is ready to take this team all the way. Of course, that Mega Salamence with that air-related ability does a lot of work. It is the Dragon Dance variant. It is able to go ahead and reset those Intimidates and also give it a quick burst of speed. You know, a lot of players, if they go for the special variant, they opt for Tailwind instead of Dragon Dance, but instead, Paul opting for Dragon Dance here.
Yeah, definitely. Paul does have a Snorlax on his team as well, and I'm just kind of trying to mind game, like, how good is Snorlax here in this matchup? It is a little bit difficult to deal with specifically because of Incineroar's knockoff and Kartana being able to Sacred Sword. But if you can knock out Kartana, maybe force it out, then Snorlax, especially if it sets up, has a really good matchup against a lot of Roberto's Pokemon. And that potentially could be a game changer. But pretty interesting to note that both teams do have Kartana. You know, Kartana definitely a really strong Pokemon in 2017, but it's had an absolutely dominating performance at this World Championship. So many teams have been running it, so many different variants as well. You know, seen the Fightinium Z, the Grassium Z, and then of course like the Figi Berry variants with Substitute that have popped up as well.
Boy, I mean, Snorlax is such a strong Pokemon. I believe earlier we actually mentioned that this is a team very similar to Paul with just a couple of changes, but in actuality it's actually a completely different team. I mean, remember last year Paul was using Celesteela. But guess what, guys? We are ready now to get started here between Paul Ruiz and Roberto Poretti. So let's go ahead and take it down to the stage with the players now. Roberto to the left, Paul on the right. Both players getting ready to get underway here in top 8. Roberto 3 wins away from becoming a world champion from his first world championship. Paul 3 wins away as well from trying to become a world champion. Well, Paul, he's no stranger to the top cut. As we've already mentioned, 3rd place last year. Here's Roberto's player card. You see his team of 6 right there. And again, you know, a lot of these accomplishments, you know, nothing really major win that we see. The Leipzig regional top 16 and of course a couple of international day 2s, Rome regional top 16. So again, I would say that this is a breakout performance, you know, top cutting the world championships, the biggest accomplishment of his life. And here he is facing off against a veteran, Paul. We've already mentioned it, 3rd place at the World Championships in 2017, ultimately losing to runner-up Sam Penn-Bellis. And here we go, both players getting ready to jump in. Let's go ahead and pull up Paul's player card here to see all of his accomplishments and those 6 Pokemon that we've already read off. That Tapu Koko, Salamence, Snorlax, Incineroar, Gastrodon, and Kartana. And, you know, Latin American International top 16. He was also a Peruvian regional champion. So, you know, I mean, again, World Championships last year, breakout season, really put himself on stage and put Ecuador on the stage as well to become a region to be respected. So both players now getting ready to jump into team preview. You've already gone over it, Aaron. You know, it's going to be a great match. Again, that Mega Salamence versus Roberto's team. We already saw it do pretty well. I mean, what would you say is the better Mega, actually, Salamence or Gengar?
It's really hard to say. I think there's a reason why there hasn't been one dominating Mega throughout the course of this championships. It's really been whatever supports the team the best, and I think there's a reason why we've seen players really build around a lot of their Mega Evolutions and protect it really well. I think, Gengar, really fast, really incredible ability as well, but it is so frail, so you do have to protect it accordingly. And Incineroar, a really great partner because you can intimidate and fake out. Being able to trap something in with Shadow Tag and be able to intimidate is a really, really big deal. And we are finally going to get into this first game of top 8.
Yep, team preview now, one of the most important aspects of this game. You always want to be able to start off on the right foot. You always want to have that board position right off the bat. So these leads are going to be absolutely important for both players to try to take advantage right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this matchup. I mean, Mega Gengar is quite good, but Gengar always has to be worried, of course, about Incineroar. But it does have a pretty good matchup against Kartana. Definitely can do a lot of work against Coco as well, depending on how the Tapu Koko is trained. Of course, you do risk a potential speed tie between the Coco and the Gengar. And Tyranitar is something that Roberto has played really, really well with throughout the course of this tournament. But I think for Paul, Kartana is a really essential Pokemon to bring into this matchup, doing really well against Tapu Fini, Roberto's own Kartana, and Tyranitar. Wouldn't be too surprised to see that Mega Salamence, as we've been talking about as well. Tapu Koko, I think, also a really strong choice for Paul. Snorlax maybe a little bit more difficult to bring into this one. And on Roberto's end, I think so many things going on here. The Landorus definitely can put in a lot of work, especially with really strong ground type attacks, especially if it has something like Hidden Power Ice, like those special variants that we've seen against Salamence. But Tapu Fini as well, I think, quite good.
And here we go now, getting underway. Top 8 here between Roberto Peretti and Paul Ruiz. Roberto going to lead with the Kartana and Gengar. Over on Paul's side, Gastrodon and Incineroar. So Gengar can Mega Evolve here and lock Pokemon in, allowing Kartana maybe to do some work. Definitely has an advantage over this Gastrodon, but is threatened by that Incineroar. Yeah,
so Incineroar here definitely in a really great position, and we were talking a little bit about this in the pregame analysis, but Gastrodon's really good against Roberto's team as long as you avoid getting damaged by that Kartana. So I think this is a pretty great lead from Paul from the get-go, where you have fake out pressure onto the Kartana immediately and you threaten with a lot of damage. The only downside is Gengar can Mega Evolve, and if you just protect both Pokemon, then maybe you've got Gastrodon trapped in against your Kartana. So there'll be some interesting decisions here as to whether or not Paul decides to switch out or not, but it looks like he is just going to stay in with that Gastrodon. So now with Gengar Mega Evolving, these two Pokemon will be trapped.
Yep, Gengar with that Shadow Tag ability, locking in Gastrodon and Incineroar. Gengar not wanting to take free damage at all, just going to protect itself here, and so is Kartana. I mean, Gastrodon and the Incineroar can't really do much work. That is going to hit into that Kartana line. It looks like it's going to be a Tectonic Rage from that Gastrodon, going to land into what could be that Mega Gengar slot.
Yeah, so regardless of who it targets, it will get some decent damage off here. Against Gengar, super effective. Against Kartana, Kartana's space special defense, not exactly the strongest. Nice double protect on Roberto's end there. It is going to actually go into the Kartana, so chipping it just for a little bit. The double protect there means that you bait out that Z move, don't take too much damage from it, and more importantly, now the Gastrodon and the Incineroar are both trapped in. Yeah, however, this next turn, Gastrodon could go for a pretty easy protect play while Incineroar just attacks the Kartana with something like a Flare Blitz.
Yeah, and the Tectonic Rage actually lands in that Kartana slot, really trying to identify it as a potential problem here, or maybe trying to catch it on the switch, or even just trying to get a one-hit KO on it as you fake out into that slot to not allow it to move.
Yeah, definitely. I think Roberto here might actually want to consider switching out that Kartana because Gastrodon protecting here is very, very likely. Don't want to lose your Kartana immediately because that's your biggest check to that Gastrodon. So I think Paul's options here are a little bit more limited. We do see that Kartana switch out, which isn't too surprising. It is going to be the Incineroar on Paul's Roberto's end.
And that's going to be a big Intimidate to drop over on Paul's Incineroar. Going to try to weaken the amount of damage that it can do. The Intimidate before also helped out as well against that Kartana, as Gastrodon is going to protect itself, scared of that Leaf Blade. And again, Paul just trying to set up a spot where that Incineroar can get the KO on Kartana. Sludge Bomb lands into that Incineroar, does 40% right there, as it looks like the Flare Blitz from the Incineroar on Paul's side is going to crash into the Incineroar over on Roberto's side. So smart switch right there, and just trying to get some damage out there. But again, that damage output might signify that the Incineroar could be pulling in Assault Vest.
Yeah, I mean, excellent play there from Roberto, 2 turns in a row, being able to switch in Incineroar for the Intimidate. And so the Incineroar switching in for that Intimidate, doing a big deal against the Incineroar on Paul's end, and also now in a position where Paul's Pokemon really aren't hitting for very much. So Once again, Paul's options being limited because they're trapped in, and more importantly, the Cortana is still around. Sludge Bomb here and the Fake Out actually won't knock out the Incineroar though, and will proc the Berry, so he'll all the way back up. But Roberto is consistently getting damage off. However, this means Gastrodon will get a relatively free attack off. Looks like it's going to be that Earth Power into that Gengar. Shouldn't knock it out, but should do a lot.
Yeah, it does big damage right there, coming from Gastrodon's decent special attack stat. So now this Mega Gengar is heavily damaged. That lock could be broken easily as long as Roberto doesn't. If Roberto doesn't protect that Gengar, the lock could be broken easily with another Earth Power, even any sort of attack. Really, Gengar is not the buffest of Pokemon, but still. Yeah, it's still not bad position for either players. Either player can still blow this game wide open.
Yeah, there was a big survival there from Incineroars, and be able to heal back all the way from Sludge Bomb was quite nice with that Berry. And
Gengar here protects itself, actually. So Gengar not wanting to sacrifice this lock just yet. It looks like Incineroar is going to hit into that Gengar Protect, and it looks like it's going to be a U-turn from Roberto to try to pivot his Pokemon a little bit better now that he knows that that Kartana can kind of come in. Could be a spot for it to come in, but you do have to watch out for that Gastrodon Earth Power as well in order to catch that Kartana on the switch. So what is it going to be? It's going to be Landorus, so a very safe switch. Another Intimidate on that Incineroar, and also immune to Earth Power from that Gastrodon.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see who Gastrodon decided to target here. Looks like it is just going for the Earth Power into that Landorus slot, so no damage this turn. And now Roberto's in a position to potentially just knock out that Incineroar with another Sludge Bomb. It's gotten the chip damage that he's needed. Landorus, not exactly the Pokemon you want up against a Gastrodon, so we might just see it swap out immediately. Or maybe it stays in if it knows that this Gastrodon potentially doesn't have Ice Beam. Ice Beam is always something you do have to worry about, but if you can avoid that, that could be a big deal. But you can see how big the Gengar trap is right now. Paul not really being able to switch out whatsoever, being chipped away slowly. But you can also see how good Gastrodon is against Roberto's team, where like Incineroar, Gengar, and Landorus really don't do too much. So we are going to see an Earth Power just go into the Incineroar, so no switch out from the Landorus, not fearing a potential Ice Beam from that Gastrodon.
Yeah, and this Landorus is going to signify that it's carrying a Choice Scarf as Gengar uses Shadow Ball hitting into that Gastrodon slot, doing big damage with a critical hit right there, and a special defense drop as well. And it looks like it's going to be an Ice Beam in that Mega Gengar slot, going to KO it and break that Shadow Tag lock. So one KO on each side. Landorus locked into Earth Powers, so Paul could probably even send in Salamence if it wants to in order to dodge those Earth Powers from this locked Landorus.
Yeah, definitely an unfortunate critical hit and special defense drop there. Without the special defense drop, maybe Gastrodon isn't in threat of Earth Power, but the combination of both means that now has to be worried about getting knocked out by that Earth Power. But maybe still not the end of the world here with Salamence be able to come up. Landorus either has to go for the Earth Power into the Gastrodon, or it's forced to switch out. Salamence here could potentially take the opportunity to go for the Dragon Dances that you mentioned that he does have on his Salamence. So yeah, definitely a little bit unfortunate. Also does reveal that Gastrodon does have Ice Beam, so Roberto there just going for the attack loss, or maybe willing to lose his Landorus, but Paul predicts the Landorus potentially to switch out into that Incineroar, so doesn't want to risk it.
Yep, and now coming into this turn, Salamence so free. I mean, that Intimidate is big on that Kartana, and Kartana, I mean, a lot of them know Leaf Blade or Secret Sword. You can't really hit in that Salamence slot, so Salamence sitting pretty right here, and Paul's favorite Pokemon might be able to do some work here.
Yeah, the Gastrodon still in threat of an Earth Power knockout, but Landorus is actually going to be the one retreating, doesn't want to stay in, predicting the Gastrodon to potentially go for a Protect. And so Incineroar will be able to get an Intimidate off, which does go a long way against Salamence, especially the physical-oriented ones that we've seen Paul's been using. But
Salamence here now is going to Mega Evolve. It does have one stage of decreased attack, can easily shake that off with a Dragon Dance of its own, and it looks like it is going to be using a return.
It's going to be enough.
Is that double edge right into it? Big damage on that Kartana. Neutral hit thanks to that Steel typing, but big damage anyways thanks to that Aerialate ability. And here comes an Ice Beam from that Gastrodon, hits into that Incineroar slot. Not very effective damage. So now it's going to come down to Landorus and Incineroar. Now this Salamence is going to have 2-stage decreased attack.
It is, and Paul had the opportunity there to potentially go for an Earth Power, but it's tough to Earth Power a Landorus. It's a really difficult prediction to make, and he just wanted to play it safe. So that works out pretty fine. Roberto is now down to his last few Pokemon, but of course he does have the option to at least Fake Out here. We don't know what Paul's last Pokemon is, and that's going to be a really big deal. I would suspect that he would have maybe wanted to bring the Kartana. If it is, then if you can chip the Incineroar a little bit more, then a Sacred Sword will knock out the Incineroar, and then maybe you can just knock out the Landorus with the Z move afterwards. We haven't seen a Z. Oh, sorry, Gastrodon's already used the Z move, so you can't Z move, but Kartana is still a pretty big offensive Pokemon to potentially have in the back. Snorlax, that would be a little bit more concerning because a knockoff will just be able to get rid of it immediately. But Tapu Koko potentially, if it has something like a hidden power ice, can nuke the Landers. Otherwise, that's also going to be problematic for Paul. So I think if Paul doesn't have Kartana as his last one, this game is going to be pretty difficult to eke out, despite the fact that he does have a lead. And Salamence is going to be the one switching out. Who is it going to be?
It's going to be the Kartana coming in right here, scared of a potential hidden power ice from that Landers, and it is a hidden power going to land in that Kartana slot, not doing as much damage as it would have done if it was that Salamence knockoff from the
survives.
Big survival right there. Roberto regretting that as Ice Beam hits Landers, gets the big one-hit KO, and now Salamence is free to just come in and be able to sweep up this Incineroar. So, unfortunate survival right there from that Gastrodon, and now it looks like Roberto is ready to click that forfeit button.
Yeah, that was a really big survival there. I mean, if you don't get that survival, then you still have the Landers locked at the hidden power ice on its Scarf. But the Gastrodon's able to hang on because, of course, it doesn't have an item, so knock off just less damage. And really, really great play there from Paul to really seal up the deal there. That game could have been very close, or that game was very close, but Roberto there also had the possibility of locking himself into hidden power ice, but doubling up onto the Gastrodon, which would have gotten the knockout. Then you'd be in a position where you could potentially just hidden power ice the Salamence and then Flare Blitz the Kartana. But Gastrodon being able to hang on there really allowed it to win the game and secure it. And yeah, Gastrodon really proving its worth despite going up against the Kartana this game.
Wow. Paul Ruiz showing that he really wants to be back in that top 4. You know, that knockoff survival was so big. Being able to get that KO on Gastrodon would have been huge. But again, Paul realizing that, you know, Salamence is probably being threatened by a hidden power ice. So Paul switching it out, allowing Salamence to come right back in later, really just sort of positioning himself. So a great recognition from Paul to, you know, try to take advantage of the best board position possible.
Yeah, going into this next game, it feels like Roberto definitely had the early lead, but Landers in the end, it's still really good. Just need to be able to call the targets a little bit better potentially and get knockouts instead of allowing for Paul to go for the switches that he did. I like Paul's Pokemon choice here as well, where I think Tapu Koko you can maybe make an argument for. It does do a lot of damage, but that Landorus is definitely the biggest threat on Roberto's end. So one, you know, letting Landorus commit itself to Earth Power and then setting up with Salamence is a great win condition against it. And then also just being in a position where it can't knock out all of your Pokemon all at once is also a big deal. So going into this next game, you know, Roberto ended up bringing that Gengar, but it seemed like he wasn't able to do too much against the Gastrodon, which was a really, really big deal. So could see maybe potentially threatening the Gastrodon a little bit more from the get-go this time around. I thought the lead from Paul, however, was really good, where Incineroar and Gastrodon, you know, that fake out protected it really well, and then Roberto was actually forced to switch out the Kartana immediately. So maybe don't lead with it this time, but maybe switch it in to turn 1.
Yep, and here we now are back into Team People for Game 2. Paul Ruiz just one win away from where he was last year, top 4 of the World Championships. Roberto has to try to force this Game 3 now in order to keep his tournament life alive. And there's so much pressure right now for Roberto, especially considering that this is his first ever World Championships. And it's always, you know, is he going to be able to handle all this pressure, or is he going to be able to overcome it? And, you know, is he going to be able to overcome it? Or is he going to buckle? Or is he going to overcome it? Or is he going to buckle? Like, which one is it going to be, Aaron? I think Roberto's looking pretty calm, I think.
You know, there's only one way to really find out here, but I think both players definitely should be bringing Kartana into this matchup. That's for sure, I can say that. They both obviously have an Incineroar. I believe we did see both of those in the last game as well. I don't think Paul's really going to end up bringing that Snorlax. I think Tapu Koko, maybe you can make an argument for, but it is tough to drop. Like, the Salamence, Incineroar, Kartana, Gastrodon core is really good against Roberto's team, and it feels like trading one of those for Snorlax or Tapu Koko, this makes it significantly weaker. So I expect Paul to really stick to his guns, but maybe he expects Roberto to really counter the Gastrodon. That being said, I think it's actually really tough for Roberto to counter Gastrodon, even if he brings the 2 Pokemon he didn't bring in that last game in Tapu Fini or Tyranitar. So I think Paul's game plan, once again, like that last one, play around his Gastrodon. The combination of Ice Beam and Earth Power does so much against Roberto's team. And for Roberto, it's knock out the Gastrodon sooner than he did this last game.
And here we go now. Game 2 is beginning. Give it up for both of these players. They've done so much work throughout this entire season, and it comes down to this for Roberto. It is going to be Gengar and Kartana leads for Roberto. Over on the other side, Paul going to lead with Gastrodon and Incineroar. So no changes just yet. So it's gonna be this sort of game where it comes down to the board position, right? You know, leads haven't changed. It's going to come down to what's going to happen.
Yeah, Paul made the very safe play of fake out Earth Power that first game. Now, that time around, or Z move Earth Power into the Kartana. This time around, maybe he considers launching it into the Gengar instead. Maybe he considers not even using it from the get-go. Point is, he does get a free fake out, but then we might be in the same position in the last game. And in that last game, it definitely favored it favored Paul more than Roberto because the Kartana was forced to switch out knowing how big of a deal it was. So this time around, it's actually going to switch out immediately, which I like because you can see it come back in.
Landorus is going to take the field here. The Intimidate is going to be big on that Incineroar. Again, you know, just like last game, except one turn later, and Gengar is going to Mega Evolve. It is going to lose Gastrodon and this Incineroar in here, so that Incineroar is going to be stuck with that decreased stage of attack. And now, what is going to happen? Gengar going to protect itself here, not going to want to risk taking that Tectonic Rage, because Gengar can't really KO any of these Pokemon right off the bat, and it's going to be a fake out into that Landorus slot, and here comes a Tectonic Rage. Either lands into that Landorus slot, or that Gengar protects, so pretty defensive right now.
Yeah, so Landorus, a really great switch in this time around, and we'll see who it targets, whether it's the Gengar or the Landorus. If it's Gengar, at least he'll still get some damage off, and if it is actually Gengar, so this time switching it up a little bit, getting a lot of free damage off. Of course, the Kartana switching into Landorus, also slightly risky in case the Ice Beam came out there, but yeah, that's good damage output. Enough where another Earth Power from the Gastrodon actually will be able to pick up the knockout. So I think Paul's really found a phenomenal lead against Roberto, and it's not every day that you see a Kartana just forced to switch out against a Gastrodon, but the combination of Fake Out and Protect and Incineroar being able to blow the Kartana with a Flare Blitz is a really big deal. So Paul there doesn't get a knockout, but still a phenomenal position where he threatens both Landorus and Gengar with a knockout, and even a double up from Landorus and Gengar probably doesn't knock out that Gastrodon unless you land a special defense drop with Earth Power. So here Roberto might just choose to potentially knock out the Incineroar with the double target, but that means Gastrodon gets a knockout in return.
Yeah, and here we go. Gengar going to retreat, not wanting to try to risk getting KO'd. Incineroar going to come in over on Roberto's side. It is going to be using its Intimidate ability to drop Paul's Incineroar now to essentially have its attack stat that could be dangerous depending on what this Gastrodon decides to do, as Landorus goes for a U-turn, not wanting to take an Ice Beam right to the face and get KO'd. So now Roberto gets to try to figure out what his best course of action is and try to figure out what Paul is up to. So this is going to have to be counteracted here. Now it's going to be the Gengar going to take the field, and you know, all right, could take an Ice Beam much better than that Landorus, as it looks like Incineroar is just going to go for a Snarl, going to drop Gengar's special attack stat here with critical hit too, just extra damage on top. So now Gastrodon does use Ice Beam, hits into... Ooh. No, actually the Earth Power into that Incineroar does so much damage right there. Gets a special defense drop as well. Yeah, I think you can really... this game really demonstrates, or this set really demonstrates how good Gastrodon is there. Nice play by Paul there as well. Doesn't launch the Ice Beam out. And Roberto is just taking so much damage, and Gastrodon is still at full health, and this Gengar's damage output is now significantly reduced with the lack of Sludge Bomb. And one of the other great things about Gastrodon running that Z move instead of the Berry as well is that Incineroar is doing so little damage. Yeah, and wow, so much damage has already been dealt out onto Paul's side. Or not on Paul's side, but, you know, Paul has done so much damage to Roberto's side, and Roberto really has to pick up on going on the offensive now if he wants to try to force this game 3. Yeah, you know, he gets probably the opportunity to fake out here, but Gengar's actually going to swap out, so it's really difficult to keep swapping out when there's a Gastrodon that's such a big offensive threat, and you really aren't getting any damage out in return. So these Intimidates, honestly, not even that big of a deal at this point, because Gastrodon's the one that's mainly the primary attacker here. We are going to see the fake out, so Gastrodon finally will take a turn where it won't get to fake out, but the Snarls will continue to come out, and even though it's not doing that much damage, any chip can still be good against both of these Pokemon. I think Paul this next turn might want to consider retreating that Incineroar, but Gastrodon's still in a really good spot after all these turns in the game. Yeah, it can either go for an Earth Power or an Ice Beam, whatever it really wants to try to get this KO. So again, Paul just going so offensive here, and Roberto really needs to mount something here. He needs to be able to do some damage at least. Yeah, you know, he's been switching all this time, but I still don't see how he does anything against Gastrodon this turn specifically. I think Paul here might finally consider switching out that Incineroar, and we saw that Paul did have Salamence in the previous games. I think Salamence also a really incredible Pokemon for him to close out this game, especially with Kartana. So if Paul's gone with the same 4 Pokemon, I think he's in a really, really good spot here. And quite honestly, I don't know what you do here if you are Roberto. Like, you need to go for at least a knockout to get the board rolling.
Incineroar is going to swap out, so if it's something like Salamence coming in, which it is, if Roberto predicted this and maybe went for a Hidden Power Ice on that slot, then that could be what brings him back into the game. But it's really difficult making a prediction, Hidden Power Icing a Incineroar.
Yep, the Intimidate big, well, against that Incineroar.
Oh,
Hidden Power
it!
Ice! Big Hidden Power Ice against that Salamence, but it doesn't even hit the one-hit KO because that Snarl from earlier. And here comes a knockoff. Not going to knock off any item at all because we know that's a Mega Salamence. Gastrodon goes for the Ice Beam, hits that Landorus, and gets a big KO right there. So that Snarl from the turn before, big.
Yeah, nice play there, actually. And, you know, that's what I was saying. Roberto needs one big play if he wants to get back into it, and he actually calls the switch in there. That's a really, really great play. I like that play a lot from Roberto's end, where it's like, you know, the Incineroar on Paul's end is also not going to do very much, and Paul perhaps playing a little bit risky there, where he was like, oh, I'm just going to switch in for free. It's unlikely he's going to hit him Power Ice and Incineroar, but the Salamence at least does manage to hang on. I think Paul now probably wants to recycle in the Intimidates, maybe swap Salamence back out and protect Gastrodon, or swap Gastrodon out and just go for an attack here with Salamence. Either way, Paul, honestly, still in a really good position, but it felt like Paul was kind of just running over Roberto for the last couple of turns. So really, really great play there, making a very aggressive prediction, calling it correctly. Does bring Roberto back into this game, but yeah, I think we're just going to see Intimidate cycled in a little bit now.
Yep, Incineroar is going to take the field. A big Intimidate over against Roberto with that Incineroar and the Kartana. So here we go now. Salamence is going to Mega Evolve and get that Aerialate ability that is so important to Mega Salamence here. It is going to be using the Roost. Going to heal back 50% of its health, so finding this turn a great turn to heal right back up. And really, the Pokemon on Roberto's side can't do that much damage to it. Leaf Blade lands into what was that Gastrodon slot. It is now that Incineroar, and here comes another knockoff, just trying to do some damage to that Salamence, but those Intimidates and not knocking anything off. So little damage. Yeah, you know, Roberto clawed his way back into this game, but it feels like Paul just kind of dragged the life away from him after this last turn. Being able to heal all that damage off with that Roost, really, really big deal. Kartana and Incineroar are not two Pokemon that can really hit these Salamence very, very hard. So this Salamence being able to heal back is a really big deal as well, because right now Kartana and Incineroar really can't touch him. The Incineroar from Paul's end being able to intimidate two physical type attackers, really great. And it feels like Paul has now pinned Roberto in a position where you can kind of just attack both Pokemon with a Flare Blitz and a return. Kartana won't be able to hang on from any of those, and you could even go for another Roost, but it's actually going to be a Dragon Dance here from Paul. Yeah, very safe to get that up against the Incineroar and that Kartana, so smart move right there from Paul to go for the Dragon Dance, and Incineroar is just going to go ahead and hit into that Protect as Incineroar over on Roberto's side goes for that U-turn, going to try to save that Intimidate for later and send in Mega Gengar, but you know, the damage is done. That Salamence is set up. It's already got one Dragon Dance under its belt. Yeah, with that speed increase, it's guaranteed to outspeed Roberto's entire team, and right now, with Gengar so low as it is, if you knock out the Gengar, the Salamence can probably even 2v1, not to mention Roberto, Paul still has all of his Pokemon, so really incredibly played by Paul this game. It feels like he's managed this Mega Salamence really well, and despite Roberto calling the Salamence switch in earlier, Roost kind of just takes all of that away. That was a great Dragon Dance last turn as well, and I think Paul here really could just go for the attack into Gengar or go for another Roost, as Incineroar is actually going to go for a Snatch. All right, going to try to steal any setup moves from over on Roberto's side, so interesting move right there. Is that, wow, snatches that Tailwind, so Paul revealing all the text right now. Cool move right there to see. Snatch is a move that we don't see often in VGC, but when it works, it definitely pays off. Yeah, that's not something we see often, but that was such a safe play there, and because Paul had it, you know, might as well go for it, because the one way you maybe lose this game is if Roberto gets the speed back on his side. Sacred Sword probably doesn't even knock out Incineroar since Kartana is intimidated, so that should more or less seal up the game now for Paul. That was so cool to see. You know, I feel like Paul always has these really cool techs that we've seen on his teams at the last two World Championships, and wow, I mean, that probably seals Paul's spot into that top four. Of course, he's still got to play it out, but this Salamence should be able to just blow through everything at this point. Yep, and now Salamence going for a double-edge hits big into that Incineroar slot, gets the easy KO from that range despite all the Intimidates. You know, that Dragon Dance, again, paying off so much, and Incineroar now just using Flare Blitz, lands in that Kartana, big KO right there, and it's going to come, oh no, sorry, hangs on with that Focus Sash. Mega Gengar is going to hit the field, but what can this Kartana even do here? It's just going to go for a Sacred Sword into that Incineroar slot, gets the KO, but again, the Salamence is a huge problem because it resists both of the moves. You know, it does get this Beast Boost, but again, this this Salamence has set up so much, and there's still like 2 more Pokemon back for Paul's side.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the games where like every little thing for certain teams come into play, right? Paul's Salamence moveset was so crucial in this game. Without that Roost, the Salamence doesn't put on nearly as much pressure. Without that Dragon Dance, it doesn't even be able to outspeed something like the Gengar. But the combination of all that allowed the Salamence to be such a big threat, took those tanky attacks. I mean, the Snarl on the Incineroar decreasing the special attack, allowing the Salamence to tank up a little bit more. The Gastrodon Z move making sure that the knockoff does less damage. Just so many cool techs, and of course the Snatch from the Incineroar.
Gengar protects itself, Kartana protects itself, just has to try to stall out this Tailwind that Roberto actually tried to set up thanks to that Snatch here, and it looks like it's just going to be hits and protects all around. You know, could have been risky, could have been a chance for Silence instead of Dragon Hands, but, you know, Paul's already in such an advantage. You know, you don't want to get too greedy with these boosts.
Yeah, I think Roberto's only chance of winning is just trying to get a double protect with both of his Pokemon. If not, the game is certainly over this turn, but it feels like Paul has played this match phenomenally. Gengar does get the double protect, but even with that, I mean, Salamence is still has the speed boost.
Doesn't get it. It actually gets it as well.
You know, even with all that, I still think the game is over. Yeah, Paul kind of just shakes his head like, whatever. Like, I've got the Dragon Dance up. I'm going to knock out either of your Pokemon anyway. I think you have to hope now maybe for a triple protect on Gengar and a Leaf Blade crit. I don't even think that knocks out Salamence. I don't think there's any chance for Paul to lose this one. He is, he's played phenomenally in this second game. I mean, he protected that Gastrodon so well, and who would have thought Gastrodon would have been the MVP? Not to mention, I mean, I feel like all of his Pokemon were just so played. I think the matchup here was really difficult for Roberto, and he did a pretty good job trying to maneuver around it, but in the end, like, the Pokemon that he had just really faltered against Gastrodon. Gastrodon was too much to deal with, and it was specifically the combination of Incineroar and Gastrodon.
And the board position that Paul put himself in was just so advantageous. Gengar goes for a protect again, does not work. Salamence now using Double Edge, hits that Gengar, gets the KO. Both players extend the hand, and here comes Paul's Kartana. Gonna go for, oh no, actually Kartana over on Roberto's side, you know, gets to get a Tailwind, but Paul's Kartana now using that Sacred Sword with 1 hit point. Paul Ruiz has made it back to the top cut, or sorry, the top 4 of the World Championships here. So congratulations to Paul, commiserations to Roberto, but again, Paul pretty much telling the entire world, do not sleep on LatAm.
What an incredible run, right? I mean, if he wasn't considered one of the best players, like, already he was considered one of the best players of the world after the last World Championships, but it feels like a lot of players who maybe haven't had as much accomplishments before making a deep run at Worlds, even afterwards, people might forget about it. But I mean, back-to-back top 4 accomplishments, like at Worlds, now Paul easily cemented himself as one of the all-time greats already. I mean, so few players have been able to even top cut multiple times. Paul's gotten 2 top 4 finishes, and he's now only 2 sets away from becoming world champion, and that was just a masterful play there. But I mean, so much credit to Roberto as well for really doing an incredible job throughout the entire course of the tournament. I mean, how many players get to go to their first World Championships and make it to top 8? That's an incredible feat, and so much great sportsmanship there between both players.
Yep, Paul Ruiz moving on to the top 4 here, where he awaits the winner of Arash and Nils Dunlop. So still a lot of exciting action to come. But again, you know, going back to it, Aaron, I mean, Roberto just didn't mount that much offense. You know, Paul always kept the pressure on. You know, in game 1, Paul just threatened so much damage with that Gastrodon, really not allowing a chance for that Kartana to be able to deal with that Gastrodon, allowing it to stay out on the field for so long. Ice Beam was so good to be able to catch those KOs against Landorus. The Earth Powers are so good to get the KOs against Gengar, and just so much damage being spread out by a Pokemon that we don't normally think of as, you know, this hyper-offensive Pokemon.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the times with those Gengar teams, we'll often see something like a Tapu Bulu thrown onto it. This time it was only Kartana, and Kartana 4 times weak to Incineroar instead of just 2 times weak with the Tapu Bulu. Makes it that much harder, and that's why he was forced to switch out immediately. One thing that could have been interesting was he actually did reveal that the Kartana did have that Focus Sash, so you saw Paul made a really great play that second turn. We actually Z-moved into Gengar. That Z-move meant that the Gengar was suddenly in threat of an Earth Power KO. Had both Pokemon double protected and the Z-move gone into the Gengar like it did, then maybe Roberto's in a slightly better position, because now you've trapped in the Kartana, or you've trapped in the Gastrodon. You'll survive a Flare Blitz because you have the Focus Sash, and then you can Leaf Blade to knock out the Gastrodon. But because Roberto ended up switching out, I think that helped Paul out immensely. And maybe Paul was expecting that. Maybe he had multiple game plans to deal with it. But the fact that he switched out into Landorus, and the Z move went into Gengar, made the start of the game really difficult, and it was just really difficult for him to get any momentum after that.
Yeah, but of course, going into game 2, Roberto just could not mount any sort of offense, and Incineroar was just so clutch in that game, just dropping snarls, dropping Pokemon's special attack stats. Hitting that Landorus was really big to allow him to safely switch in that Salamence into the Hidden Power Ice. Yes, I just said that. To safely switch in a Salamence into a Hidden Power Ice, allowing it to survive and allowing a Salamence to set up and be able to sweep. So, amazing play. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the updated bracket here. We've had matches go along throughout this entirety of this tournament. Yusue Matsuno actually defeats Federico Toronto. Over on the other side, we've already seen Paul Ruiz defeat Roberto Poretti. So again, the match is still to come. Tomohiro Seki of Japan versus Emilio Forbes. And over on the other side of the bracket, Paul Ruiz awaits the winner of Arash Omadi and Nils Dunlop. So there's still a lot of action still to come here at the 2018 Pokemon World Championships. Oh, wow. I mean, this is just an exciting bracket. I mean, Paul is just on fire right now.
Yeah, he is. Back-to-back top 4 finishes already for him, and so much composure there in that last game as well. And, even if you have a really good matchup, you still have to execute it well, and I thought Paul did that perfectly.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take it down to Anna on the floor with the winner of the previous match, Paul Ruiz, the first member of your top 4.
I am here with Paul. Paul, tell me about that last match. What was the best moment of it for you?
It was a tough match. Actually, I think the best moment for me was when it was over. Like the moment I knocked out the Gengar, even though he got 2 double protects, but I knew that like Salmon was a +1 at that point, so it didn't matter if he got the double. But actually, now that I remember, 2 turns before that, I snatched a Tailwind from his Cortana, because I predicted that it was his only way out. So I had nothing to lose, and that's a tech that I haven't revealed yet. So I was like, okay, this is the only, if you want to have a chance, you need to protect the Gengar and Tailwind. I'm gonna snatch that Tailwind, so you are not getting the Tailwind right now. And when I made that, I was like, okay, this is it, fine.
And now you are in the top 4, and you're no stranger to the top 4. Tell us a little bit about your history as a player.
Well, this is my second World Championships. Last year, I was in Anaheim, and I made top 4 that year. It was like my first time competing at this high level, and I was so happy that it was like a dream that I finally was able to make the top cut, then top 8, and then top 4. And I came back this year because I was confident that last year the title just was so near, and I had to keep dreaming. And I was all these months saying to myself, okay, maybe this is the last chance, maybe not, who knows, but you gotta do your best and try to win this time. It seems a lot difficult, but it's not impossible by any means. So here I am.
Here you are, and you're very, very close. Are you gonna take it or no? Say yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Congratulations once again. Remember, you can join the conversation on social media. You can check us out on /Pokemon everywhere and use that hashtag #PlayPokemon. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more from the Pokemon World Championships.
Hello trainers and welcome back to the Pokemon 2018 World Championships. We are in day 2, top 8, the final top 8 game that we're going to be able to bring you on this stream. My name is Jay Blake. I'm joined by my good friend Dwee Ha, and we are so excited to show you the final person who will make it into top 4 of this year's World Championships.
It's been an exciting tournament so far, Jay, and it's just, I mean, it's crazy. You know, we've started with so many players throughout the entire season, and it's all come down to this. We are down to, well, I mean, 2 players already through to the top 4, and we are still trying to figure out who our last 2 in the top 4 are going to be.
Those last 2 games, I managed to catch both of them simultaneously. I've got 2 eyes. They were very wide apart as I was watching 2 screens. Incredible games from both players. So we had Yusei beating Federico Torano. He had a competitive Gothitelle, got loads of boost. It was incredible. The game, obviously here, Paul Ruiz dominating. It was a very, very good 2-0 victory. But finally, after teasing you for so long, earlier on, we have Emilio Forbes and Tomohiro Seki. And we are so excited to finally get these players underway.
We have hyped this match up so much that now we needed to save it. We needed to kind of tease you guys as to when this match was finally going to happen. But hey, guess what? It's coming up.
Little taste.
Little taste?
Yeah. Little taste. We keep you wanting more. That's what we do here, the Pokemon World Championships. We build up the hype and then we deliver. And boy, are we planning on delivering. This is going to be an explosive game.
Absolutely. I mean, Emilio, again, you know, Aaron's already mentioned it. These 2 players, you know, they haven't had that many big finishes on the big stage. Emilio, of course, last year had a very strong finish at the International Championships. Over on Tomohiro's side, he did finish top 8 at the 2018 Japan National Championships. And, you know, it doesn't matter what these players' past accomplishments are because they're here now, top 8 of the World Championships. They're both very strong players. They've brought their A game throughout this entire tournament, and it comes down to this.
They've brought their A game, Dwee, but do they have their A+ game? They need to leave nothing behind here. You can't afford to lose this game if you want to get into the top 4. These players, they don't want to go home in the top 8. They want to make the World Championships finals. They want to take that crown, and both of them have to keep pushing so hard to make it through now.
Yep, 3 is the magic number now. Before this, 5 was magic number, but now it's 3. 3 wins gets you that title of world champion to join the ranks of some of the greatest players of all time. Ray Rizzo, Wolf Glick, Seijun Park, Arash Omadi, Shoma Hanami, and Ryota Otsubo. So, you know, that's an amazing list to join.
Yes, and we are so incredibly delighted to be able to crown world champions here with you this weekend. Obviously, we have a stream coming for you tomorrow in which we will crown champions in the junior division, senior division, and obviously the masters division for the video game championship series. Also for trading card games, Pokemon Tournament DX have already crowned champions. Congratulations to those guys. I hope you guys have been able to catch some of it, but obviously you're watching us with the VGC right now, and you can't go anywhere else. We're about to bring you some incredible matches.
There's still more action to come. I mean, after this, we still have top 4, right?
We do?
We do.
We don't just go directly to the finals.
No, we have to play it out, Jay.
I don't think I can go, do we?
The Elite 4, as you might call them.
Every year, a different kind of Elite 4. Well, usually, I guess. But we are almost ready now. Here we go. You can see Emilio on the left-hand side of your screen, Tomohiro on the right-hand side of your screen. These trainers both ready and prepared, looking very, very intense as we are getting underway for this match, Dwee.
Absolutely. Emilio on the left. He's actually a player from my area. So, you know, I've seen him play at the local tournaments in my area, and he is a force to be reckoned with there. You can see his accomplishments. He was a finalist at the 2018 San Jose Regional Championship, and again, you know, doing so well at the Anaheim Open Top 8 just to get some championship points to start off the season. And last year, you know, that big finish at the North American International Championships.
And such an interesting team as well, that Tapu Bulu, Incineroar, Gengar, Latias, Landorus Fairy Form, and Politoed. Obviously, the combination of Gengar and Politoed screams Perish Song, and it looks like being able to trap your opponent in could be a very viable strategy for Emilio moving into this match.
I absolutely love Perish Trap teams. It's very strategic to try to play with, and it's so frustrating to play against. You have to figure out how you want to break those locks. And of course, over on the other side here, Tomohiro Seki of Japan, again, that Japanese national championship top 8. And 2015 actually finished top 32 of that tournament. He's piloting that team, a very familiar team here. Tapu Koko, Cresselia, Landers, Tapu Fini, Heatran, and Kangaskhan. Sort of a modern day chalk variant.
Yes, and it looks like Tapu Koko is replacing the Kartana that is usually seen on this side. So Tomohiro favoring the electric type damage that Tapu Koko can bring instead of the grass and steel type that Kartana uses. And his accolades speak for themselves. Top 32 and top 8 at Japan Nationals, nothing to sniff at all. We've already mentioned before, different qualification systems for Japan, but it's still as intense as ever.
Yep, and it looks like both players now are still getting ready to get into Team Preview, but this is going to be a great matchup. Tomohiro is going to have to try to figure out how he is going to break the locks on Emilio's side. Of course, you know, when Mega Gengar takes the field, Shadow Tag locks in all Pokemon except Ghost types. Tomohiro doesn't really have that, and a lot of the ways that people can bypass that is through moves like U-turn or Volt Switch. Landers does have access to that U-turn to try to switch out before it can feint to that Parasong, get in a fresh Pokemon, and maybe try to find another way to refresh his Pokemon in order to get the lock broken. So Emilio really is just going to try to handle that Landers-Therian, because once you lose that Landers-Therian, you know, you kind of lose that pivot.
Yep, and another pivoting Pokemon is usually Tapu Koko, which has access to Volt Switch. We have to see if Tomohiro is going to want to bring it, because it does have the opportunity to speed tie with Mega Gengar if both of them are trained to the maximum speed that they can use, and that is a real big mind game for trainers who want to be able to match up against Mega Gengar with their Tapu Koko. It's a real difficult situation if you find yourself trapped in and you have to rely on that 50-50.
Yep, and key pivot right there for Emilio is definitely going to be something that we've seen a lot of. You know, Mega Gengar has been such a strong Mega Pokemon throughout this entire season. You know, switching is a key part of VGC, being able to reset stat drops, but Mega Gengar locking Pokemon in, essentially taking away, you know, a lot of options from your opponent. That's just such a great ability, and we've seen a lot of it where Mega Gengar will switch out. You know, the lock is still there, the opponent can't switch. You switch out the Gengar, you U-turn with your partner, either the Incineroar or the Landers-Therian, in order to continue that lock, so that's going to be very dangerous. And again, Tomohiro is going to have to try to figure out a way to be able to, you know, not fall for this trap.
You couldn't see it at home, but I was doing the U-turn with my hands.
It's just a big loop. It's just a big revolving door Pokemon, pretty much. A big revolving door Pokemon.
And Gengar is the bouncer, not letting anyone through that revolving door. Instead, just controlling the motions. We're about to jump into Team Preview for you guys. Emilio Forbes of the United States of America against Tomohiro Seki of Japan. And we've already mentioned a lot of the Pokemon here. Really interested to see if Emilio is going to rely on Tapu Bulu alongside Gengar with that Shadow Tag ability, trapping Tapu Koko and Tapu Fini in and removing their terrains, their damage boost, all the control that they have, and replacing it with grassy terrain to help Gengar match up against Landorus, or to really just go ham and start dropping some big wood hammers with Tapu Bulu. Could be a really interesting option for Emilio.
Yeah, and you know, Heatran does have a pretty decent matchup versus, you know, Pokemon like Incineroar. Sometimes Gengar, you know, might not carry Shadow Ball. It's just, you know, depends on what this Gengar really knows, can do well. But of course, that Lander is really getting a very strong single target attack in that Tectonic Rage. You know, it really kind of just hurts Heatran, right? I mean, this is something that Landers had a problem with. You know, I want an Earthquake, but I have a partner out in the field that does not want to be Earthquake, and now, you know, there's that Landers there, and with that Grounding Z to just go for Tectonic Rages.
By the power of Z crystals, Landorus has found a way.
It has found its way, and again, you know, I mean, Emilio actually said that one of his comments was that Mega Gengar is the best Pokemon. That's not a quote, but I'm just saying, you know, the general idea of it is that Mega Gengar is such a strong Pokemon. A lot of players will agree with them. I mean, it is so good. It has such a high speed stat. It has such a strong ability. It has a high special attack stat. Pretty good coverage. Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, that's pretty good coverage. And then Icy Wind as a great support move to be able to hit Pokemon that, you know, don't enjoy taking Ice type attacks. Salamences, Landers-Therians. It's a good Pokemon.
And the team that Emilio has built around it, Dual Intimidate, again, increasing the amount of hits that Mega Gengar can survive. It's quite a frail Pokemon, very offensive, got lots of options got lots of options for it, but with Landorus and Incineroar both being able to offer it 3 turns to do more shenanigans, that's where Mega Gengar really comes into its own. And it's really interesting looking at the Pokemon that are being used to kind of counter Mega Gengar. Landorus and Incineroar being part of that strategy as well, with their pivoting moves and with the ability to hit it super effectively with Earthquake, Tectonic Rage, Knockoff, Darkest Lariat, if you're running that kind of thing. It's not a bad move, but if you're running that kind of thing. But also, Paul Ruiz using Gastrodon, that Tectonic Rage or Earth Power. We see Landorus sometimes using Earth Power, and these are very important moves for taking down Mega Gengar. And you said before, like, you need to understand how to break that trap. When I play at home and I'm playing against Mega Gengar, I'm more like breaking my DS because I'm struggling so hard to be able to get rid of that trap. And Gengar,
I want to switch, but I can't switch. Why?
What? You're ruining my strategies. I just want to be able to knock things out. But that's the thing. If you are playing against a really composed Mega Gengar player and they know what to do, they're always one step ahead. Yep. And you really have to go that one extra step further, and Tomohiro really needs to try and put the pressure on early. Think about his leads, think about which Pokemon he can switch in onto that lead of Mega Gengar should he see it, because that's how you start to get the advantage here.
Yep, and over on Tomohiro's side, he is running that Mega in Kangaskhan, a Pokemon that was so dominant, 2016, 2015, early parts of 2014.
Oh, yeah.
In between this format and 2016, it lost a huge tool in Power-Up Punch.
Yes.
And the fact that Parental Bond just doesn't do as much damage anymore, Reducing the amount of damage that second hit does really has put a stall on how well Mega Kangaskhan does. So, Mega Kangaskhan is also very vulnerable to Intimidate. Before it used to be able to Power-Up Punch away all those stat drops, but, Incineroar can come in pretty well. Lannister can come in pretty well. Dropping those Intimidates, stacking those Intimidates onto Kangaskhan just really removes the amount of damage that it can do. And here we are now, jumping into team preview. Jay, are you excited for this, man?
I am incredibly excited. Here you can see both trainers desperately writing down some notes as they prepare for this first game in our last top 8 match of the Pokemon 2018 World Championships. Emilio Forbes of Tapu Bulu, Incineroar, Gengar, Latias, Landorus Fairy Form, and Politoed up against Tomohiro Seki, going with Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini, Cresselia, Heatran, Landorus Fairy, and Kangaskhan.
Yeah, so Tomohiro's, again, just going to have to figure out a way to be able to bypass this Perish Song team that Emilio has, and it can be frustrating. Like, you lock those Pokemon in, you can't switch, you keep piling on those Intimidates, you're just not doing that much damage. It's frustrating. Like, it's just to no ends, just like you said. You just want to split your DS in half because it's just so hard to get through.
Yes, and he really needs to think carefully about his lead. He was really locked in before Emilio was going for it, so he has an idea of what he wants to do here. Stalwart Pokemon like Cresselia and Heatran might be a good option for him to go down. They do have access to super effective moves against Gengar, but then what if the Politoed is leading as well and you get that Perish Song? And that's where the Pokemon who are very, very defensively built are broken down by this strategy. Guys, we are going into game here using the hashtag #PlayPokemon. Let us know who you're rooting for, Emilio or Tomohiro. This is the final top 8 game. One of these players will be making it through to the top 4 of the 2018 Pokemon World Championships. The leads are coming out. Tapu Bulu and Gengar for Emilio Forbes. Tomohiro Seki will be revealing Heatran and
the Landorus, if it's a physical one, then it doesn't mind facing off against it. Obviously, you have to watch out for the rogue Sludge Bomb ones, the Choice Scarf variants, but, it's pretty easy right here for Emilio to trap these 2 Pokemon in. You might have to try to figure out a way to deal with that Landorus. Tapu Bulu can do some pretty decent damage to it with a Grassy Terrain boosted Wood Hammer, but it also is intimidated, so Tapu Bulu just switches out.
Tapu Bulu leaving the field, just as you said, bringing in Landorus Fairy Form instead. Another Intimidate being dropped in this game, but it's going towards Tomohiro's own Landorus, which is reduced by 1 stage of physical attack. It's going to bounce out once again. Tapu Koko coming in instead. So Tapu Koko hitting the field, removing the grassy terrain. Instead, its Electric Surge will electrify the battlefield, preventing Pokemon from falling asleep, but more importantly, boosting the power of electric type attacks. And here it is, the main focus of Emilio's team, that Mega Gengar, trading its Cursed Body ability for Shadow Tag and protecting itself, setting up that lock for the first turn.
Yeah, and Emilio is in a not bad spot right here because, again, I mentioned before the fact that you can pair song, do some work with Landers Therian over on Emilio's side, maybe even go for a very powerful Tectonic Rage into that Heat Ram slot, try to knock it out right away. Could possibly get up that pair song, but you do have to respect Tapu Koko because of that Electric Terrain boosted, possibly a Gigavolt Havoc, targeting down that Mega Gengar. Might be able to get the one-hit KO right off the bat. So precarious spot for Emilio. Maybe might not want to try to set up just yet. Maybe try to deal with Pokemon over on Tomohiro's side.
Yeah, Gengar will be retreating here. I was wondering if Tapu Bulu might make an appearance, and it does. So it's going to take terrain control once again. Grassy Surge activating. All Pokemon will get a little bit of HP back once they've taken damage, but more importantly, Grass-type attacks will be increased. And we see Protect coming out from Heatran, avoiding any sort of ground DMZ. Hidden Power from Tapu Koko, going into that Landorus's Hidden Power Ice, and not doing too much damage there, leaving it just over half HP. But Tomohiro must be very happy that he protected his Heatran, as we see the ground DMZ coming out from Landorus. Tectonic Rage is available to hit either slot and do super effective damage to it.
Yeah, if it hits the Koko, if it hits Tapu Koko, that's a one-hit KO for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And if it hits into that Heatran Protect, that's still massive amounts of damage. You know, quadruple weak, no Intimidate dropped on this Landers Therian on Emilio's side, sending Heatran down to the core of that plant. Does so much damage right there, 3/4 of its hit points.
Through Protect, Dwee, that is huge. A little bit of HP coming back to Heatran there, but the damage is already done. Such a bulky Pokemon taking so much damage on one turn.
Yeah, and a very smart switch right there from Emilio to bring in that Tapu Bulu. In case maybe, you know, an attack was landing in that Tapu Bulu slot, you know, it changes the terrain so Tapu Koko's not doing as much damage as it possibly can, and also takes a Thunderbolt or that Gigavolt Havoc a lot better too. So smart play from Emilio to not get too ahead of himself to try to set up a Perish Song. Maybe that Perish Song will come into handy later on. You know, one of the toughest things to go up against is when you have 2 Pokemon left and you put that Perish Song out, that pretty much puts an artificial timer on this entire game. Hey, knock out the rest of my Pokemon in 3 turns or you lose.
And this is one of the things that Mega Gengar loves to do. Make sure that the opponent loses options and you are in control of the game. Cresselia being revealed for Tomohiro. It will be the final Pokemon in his party. A very strong defensive Pokemon as Tapu Bulu bouncing out once again, not attacking, not revealing anything information-wise as Gengar comes in its place. Landorus retreating as well. Double switch being pulled out from Emilio. This is what Gengar teams love to do, making sure that the situations are always in their favor. Incineroar will come in as well. Was hoping to try and get a Intimidate off onto something switching in for Tomohiro, but it doesn't matter too much. He's got that fake out option later on. Heatran, the last thing to switch out, but here comes Landorus. Again, another Intimidate being dropped, but this time it will make connections with someone that doesn't want one, which will be that Incineroar on Emilio's side.
Yeah, so big Intimidate right there. Incineroar won't be doing as much damage as it possibly can. You know, it does have access to Knockout, and just in general is a great counter to Cresselia because Cresselia doesn't have much that can actually touch it. So Landers Therian coming in right here again, does have access to U-turn, can possibly use that to kind of switch out if it really wants to, but you know, Gengar also enjoys facing off against Cresselia because of the fact that it can go for a very powerful Shadow Ball here to just get up as much damage as possible.
Yeah, you can imagine a fake out from Incineroar landing into that Landorus slot to prevent any ground type damage, hitting into 2 Pokemon that are hit super effectively by it, which allows Gengar to attack into that slot as well. Cresselia going for the helping hand here, so if the fake out does not go into Landorus, this could be huge. Incineroar goes for the fake out, it will land onto the Landorus. Helping hand has been wasted as a substitute comes out from Gengar. Great play from Emilio here. He saw the threat was the Landorus. Gengar able to get the free substitute up, and the lock becomes even harder to break.
Yeah, that's always risky to throw out a helping hand if you have a fake out user on the opposite side of the field because, you know, you can essentially have a dead turn right there. So again, that Cresselia on Tomohiro's side really trying to help out that Landorus for nothing. So Tomohiro really investing all of his eggs into that basket of Landorus, being able to go for a very powerful Earthquake right here probably. I mean, that would have done so much damage despite the fact that Grassy Terrain is up, but you need as much damage out there as possible. And here comes another helping hand.
It didn't work the first time, but Tomohiro is ready to drop a helping hand, and Gengar will protect itself, wanting to keep that substitute around. It's so cute, but also so functional with the amount of damage it can protect, and Incineroar is going to protect as well. So 2 moves revealed on Incineroar, fake out and protect. U-turn coming out from Landorus. Very interesting move. Hope trying to just bounce out, get some cheeky pivots in, but also break that substitute with a helping hand.
Yeah, that is just a quadruple resist attack in a substitute. That would not even have faded, I'm sure. So interesting decision right there from Tomohiro to go for that, really just trying to get that Landorus out as well. So maybe I really don't know.
Well, here we see that Emilio has a plan. It's going to be the Shadow Ball going into that Cresselia. Big amount of damage there. Oh, just under half its HP being dealt in damage. U-turn coming out from the Landorus, going to try and break that substitute on Gengar. But as we mentioned, it is resisted heavily by this Mega Gengar. But more importantly, Landorus will bounce out and be able to bring in a new Pokemon here. Maybe the Heatran trying to pick up a Flare Blitz going into that slot. If Tapu Koko comes in, it will remove the grassy terrain as well. But it will be available to be hit by this Incineroar.
Yeah, and again, one thing about this field is that, Heatran is the only Pokemon that's really taking damage. Tapu Koko does take the field here, is going to change that terrain. It is functioning in a terrain that it does not mind going up against, so, now this Tapu Koko can do some big damage here as Cresselia goes for an Icy Wind. Yeah,
not after Cresselia gets its say. Icy Wind being hit into the substitute on Mega Gengar, which doesn't mind too much at all, not even a stitch broken, as U-turn comes out from Incineroar, bouncing out once again as well, removing that speed drop, but obviously still the damage remains.
Yep, and now Emilio again just trying to rotate Pokemon in and out. Tapu Bulu is going to come in, changing that terrain. So again, Emilio's just playing this game of control, and Emilio is doing so well at it.
Yes, and we haven't seen any information about what this Tapu Bulu is running. We don't know if it's the Grassy Z variant, if it's an Assault Vest, a Berry, or even the popular Choice Scarf that we've seen on teams using Mega Gengar. There's lots of options available here, so Tomohiro has to play this very carefully. Cresselia trapped in at this point in time, probably doesn't have the move Protect, that they don't run it too often. Tapu Koko might have to protect itself here, doesn't want to be knocked out by any rogue combinations, and Gengar free to Sludge Bomb that slot if it wants to, because the substitute is still up.
Yep, and it looks like Cresselia is using that ally switch here, trying to play some mind games. You always click that ally switch button, usually if it's in game 1.
And here comes the Thunderbolt. That substitute won't appreciate it this time. Unfortunately, the stuffing all over the place as Gengar returns to the field. Woodhammer revealed by Tapu Bulu, going into that Tapu Koko slot and picking up the knockout onto Cresselia. This will be quite nice because not too much damage dealt in recoil there because of the low HP on that Cresselia. Shadow Ball coming out from Gengar. It's going to go into that Tapu Koko. The most important thing to note here is that Tapu Bulu moved before Gengar. That's probably a Choice Scarf.
Absolutely, doesn't outspeed that Tapu Koko, so this Tapu Koko is probably a bit more of an offensive variant, but importantly to note, Tomohiro now realizes, this is a Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu, and I gotta respect that.
Yes, Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu is very, very dangerous, especially bringing Landorus in here. It needs to be able to intimidate that Bulu, but more importantly, Tomohiro has to find a way to protect himself from even more powerful Woodhammers. As a flying and ground type Pokemon, Landorus would still take a fair amount of damage here. With the amount of HP remaining to Heatran, it would still take a huge amount of damage here. I imagine a Woodhammer without being intimidated might pick up the knockout onto that Heatran.
I don't know about that one. That's quadruple resist, but the important thing is Gengar might actually be able to get the KO on that Heatran with the Shadow Ball. So
thank you, Dewey. That's a very good point.
It's same point pretty much got across the board, but this is a threat for a double KO depending on what this Tapu Koko can do and how much offense it can mount. Can it get that KO on that Gengar? If it is carrying an Electrium Z, it is actually carrying the Electrium Z, and how much damage it's going to do. This Gengar is geared towards Perish Song, so I feel like this Gengar is going to be invested more in bulk. And we saw that those Shadow Balls land earlier didn't really do that much damage, and we've already know this Tapu Koko is a lot more offensive here. So, oh boy, how bulky is this Gengar?
Big gamble coming out from Tapu Koko, launching the Electrium Z Gigavolt Havoc into Gengar. Gengar will be able to survive with 40 HP. Tapu Bulu now launching a big Woodhammer into Tapu Koko, picking up another knockout. 2 Pokemon left for Tomohiro, and Heatran will be able to take a Shadow Ball from Gengar, picking up a knockout as well. Landorus, the last Pokemon on Tomohiro's side of the field. Emilio must be so happy. He can see the end game in sight.
Yeah, and one more Pokemon remaining over on Tomohiro's side. That Landorus comes in. Again, we've already mentioned it. Gengar with access to Perish Song can throw down a big timer on his Landorus. But of course, Tapu Bulu can also still do a lot of damage with a Woodhammer to intimidate. It's whatever, Tapu Bulu is still throwing out Woodhammers boosted by grassy terrain. Gengar can still throw Shadow Balls at that Landorus, so Emilio played this game so well with such great positioning. Being able to know when to go on the offensive, when to try to backtrack, switch out, and get it into better spots.
And that's the forfeit. Emilio Forbes has taken this first game in our final top 8 game of the Pokemon 2018 World Championship Video Game Championship Series. Emilio Forbes with that Mega Gengar team and great positioning mind, able to take this first game. And Dwee, Tomohiro, we've mentioned it before, it's so hard to play against teams like this. He really tried to make the most of it, but Heatran took so much damage, a Pokemon that he really needed to use its defensive might for, just losing too much in one turn.
Yeah, and it's still good information for Tomohiro to have. And, just because you lose game one doesn't necessarily mean that, it's harder to mount a comeback. You actually know a lot more about your opponent's team, and you kind of look towards your team itself and kind of think about what resources you have to try to combat that. This Tapu Bulu is Choice Scarf. I had to understand that. My Tapu Koko outspeeds this Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu, so I know that much, and I know that this Gengar can survive a Gigavolt Havoc without the electric train, so my terrain is going to be very important for Tapu Koko to have, or Tomohiro to have.
And also Tapu Koko outspeeding Gengar consistently in that game as well. So lots of information gained by Tomohiro. He's unfortunately one game behind in this set, but it's not over just yet. Both of these trainers thinking carefully about team preview now. Do you imagine that Emilio might want to switch things up, or do you think the same four Pokemon served him so well in the first game, he might just go for it again?
I mean, I don't exactly know what Latias does because of the fact that, I've only really started seeing it come into great effect at the World Championships. I know it has access to Alex, which we saw it on stream before, but I'm not sure if this is the same build of Latias. So I don't know, man. I think Emilio had a very solid team. He had two Intimidators, he had Gengar and Tapu Bulu to try to change that terrain. So I think Emilio is actually in a good spot. Tomohiro, though, he's going to have to figure out how he's going to throw out more offense because, he spent a couple turns just helping hand U-turning into a Gengar substitute. Gengar quadruple resists that. So you're not even going to phase that substitute. You're really just trying to get out there, but why are you going for that U-turn? You have to think to yourself, all right, well, I just need to get out, but are you really going to waste that helping hand? I think that turn Cresselia was much better off going on the offense or doing something else.
His defensive needs were really strong in game one. Hats backwards, trainers. It's game two of the final top 8 game. Emilio Forbes of the United States of America up against Tomohiro Seki of Japan. And we see the leads coming out now. Landorus on Emilio's side of the field, getting an Intimidate off onto the Landorus on Tomohiro's side of the field, paired with that Gengar from Emilio and the Heatran from Tomohiro.
Yeah, so exchanging Intimidate is going to be big against both these Landoruses, since we know that they're both physical Landorus. Of course, Heatran does have to watch out for that Tectonic Rage from Emilio's side. It already does so much damage that that actually opens up the opportunity to get KO'd by a Shadow Ball from that range. So information that Tomohiro knows now, not necessarily what he knew in game one. Of course, in the previous game, we saw Gengar have Tapu Bulu take the field to mitigate the amount of damage that the Landorus over on Tomohiro's side did. So might want to look into that because of the fact that an Earthquake from Landorus Area will do a lot of damage, but Tomohiro just decided to switch instead.
Yeah, good switch going into that Cresselia now. The Levitate ability going to prove very useful should any Earthquakes come out. It won't take any damage at all. Gengar taking the opportunity to Mega Evolve, trading its Curse Volley ability for that Shadow Tag, the key linchpin of Emilio's team, and we've seen it used to such good effect. Straight substitute coming out from
protects
Gengar.
right here.
This is going to be huge. Landorus going for the U-turn. It's going to go into that Cresselia. We're just going to try and get a bit of chunk damage onto the opposing Landorus, but goes for the Cresselia instead and bounces back to Emilio.
Yeah, so now Emilio not investing in going for an attack here. Could have gotten a KO on that Heatran, but of course, these players are both playing under pressure. Spotlights under them as well. Incineroar getting into the field. Intimidate is not going to matter at all, but Gengar is hiding behind that substitute as Heatran goes for the Heat Wave. Not effective on that Incineroar, but will be able to fade that substitute on Gengar.
Good play by Tomohiro here, not fearing Landorus, knowing that probably Emilio wants to switch out because of the Intimidate there, revealing the Life Orb as well, so good information for Emilio to have. And I imagine, Dwee, with Incineroar on the field, the fake out has to go towards that Cresselia. Trick Room could be disastrous, especially with Heatran revealing Earth Power last game.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, last turn we saw Incineroar take the field. We saw Cresselia actually go for a helping hand in that Heatran. You never really want to do that. You want to kind of separate your move so at least you can have something happen with that fake out pressure on the other side. Gengar doesn't mind where it is right now. Obviously has to watch out for the Heatran Earth Power, but instead Heatran protects, but now this opens up a chance for Gengar to go for a Shadow Ball.
Ooh, fake out into that Heatran, wanting to stop any sort of Earth Power, but we see the Perish Song coming out from Emilio, and this is a strong option going into that Cresselia. It does set up the Trick Room, so Tomohiro gets a little bit of what he wants here, but Cresselia is put on a timer. You imagine now that we're going to start seeing some U-turns and some careful protects coming out, Dwee.
Yeah, and I mean, Heatran's a pretty speedy Pokemon. Incineroar, not so much. Incineroar might still be able to move before that Heat Ran, before Trick Room does have access to U-turn. And again, it's going to come down to how this lock is going to stay in place. 3 turns, that's all you need. A double protect here makes that count drop to 2. A switch drops it down to 1, and then from there you just protect. So
the issue is Incineroar U-turning out and bringing Mega Gengar back into that slot should Gengar switch would allow Heatran just to get a big Earth Power into that slot and break the lock. And then Cresselia would be able to switch out again. We'll have to see how he goes. He's not going to use Incineroar here. Instead, going for that Landorus, so applying some pressure using the ground-type Pokemon, staring down that Heatran, so it can't freely attack into any slots here. Gengar, you imagine, would protect itself. Helping Hand coming out from Cresselia first off, though, so Landorus could be a very good switch in here. Gengar forced to protect. It's a speedy Pokemon under Trick Room. It doesn't want to take any damage at all. This is going to be the Heat Wave coming out. Great option for Tomohiro, understanding there could be a switch out. Landorus avoids.
So now the pair count falls to 2. Switching a U-turn will again allow you to do it, and right now is actually kind of a better spot because Landorus is outspeeding that Heat Ram. So Landorus is going to be moving last, which means that, well, Gengar can come in pretty free.
That's it. So Emilio showing how much he understands his speed tiers of his team. Gengar, you know it's going to switch out right now. Probably going into that Incineroar for the resisted hit once again. Not revealing that final Pokemon. Landorus then free to U-turn. Gengar doing that switch. Here we go. Incineroar coming in once again. Intimidate's not going to matter here. It's all about the positioning. Heatran probably needs to get a big attack off. Tomohiro must be so frustrated that Heat Wave missed last turn. He really needed that good damage onto the Landorus. Another helping hand coming out. Cresselia being a very good cheerleader for its partner Heatran here. And Earth Power coming out from the Heatran, going into that Incineroar. So good option there. Understanding the switch from Gengar was very much a read. And Incineroar fainting here. So Tomohiro does take the Pokemon advantage, but with the lock still on, it's not going to be too long until Gengar will be able to claim some victims with the Perish Song.
Yeah, and now Landorus is going to go back. Gengar, it doesn't matter really what... I mean, I guess it kind of does. You obviously want the Gengar to come out at some point, but it depends on whether or not Emilio wants that Landorus right back out. So here, Heatran, Cresselia, they're going to faint at the end of this turn, send out 2 Pokemon that can protect and just stall out the Perish Song, and then, that allows Gengar to set up another Perish Song to put another timer on. So here we go. This turn is just going to be most likely a double protect.
Yeah, I can imagine this being a dead turn. And also a very good turn for Emilio to waste Trick Room turns. So that means at the end of Trick Room, with 3 Pokemon remaining, Gengar with a Perish Song should be able to put a timer onto Tomohiro and really take it to him if there's no offensive pressure coming out from Tomohiro's Pokemon. Landorus still being in action could prove disastrous for Mega Gengar before it gets the Perish Song up. Depends on which final Pokemon Emilio reveals here. He's already locked in his moves. Tomohiro really has to think about what he's doing. There's no room for him to switch out. We're just waiting to see how these trainers are going to react, but imagine the double protect is very, very obvious here. Landorus being one of the known threats on Tomohiro's side of the field. What do you think that last Pokemon could be, Dwee?
I actually think that it's Tapu Bulu because, you want to save that Tapu Bulu for later. You switch right back in that Landorus. You want to be able to have that Tapu Bulu be able to come in later in order to change the terrain, just in case the Tapu Koko comes back in and you can actually take it away since the last 2 Pokemon. And also, we know that it's Choice Scarf, so it can't protect. So that's probably why this Landorus came in, because it does have access to protect.
Heat Wave's a dud here, and we see that Cresselia goes for reversing the Trick Room, which seems like an interesting play, but we know that Tapu Koko is the fastest Pokemon on Tomohiro's side of the field. Cresselia will faint due to the Perish Song, and Music City claims another victim here as Heatran goes down as well. And as Trick Room has ended, Gengar still very, very fast and very, very dangerous.
Yeah, so reversing that Trick Room, I believe that was not the last turn of Trick Room. I believe there was one more turn of Trick Room right after that, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much allowing Tomohiro to have some chance here with that Tapu Koko possibly hiding in the back to go for a very powerful Gigavolt Havoc. But again, you have to watch out for that Tapu Bulu in the back and ready to switch in at moment's notice.
And Tapu Koko is going to be the final Pokemon revealed on Tomohiro's side of the field, and the Landorus as well gets an all-important Intimidate off onto Emilio's side of the field. So Landorus for Emilio probably doesn't want to take any more. It won't be able to take any more Intimidates. He might want to switch out to be able to bring Tapu Bulu in and reset the terrain, or Gengar might want to switch out to avoid any attacks here. it's a very interesting turn for Tomohiro to imagine where the switch is coming.
Yeah, and I believe even if Tapu Bulu switches in for that lander slot, Gengar will fall to a Gigavolt Havoc outside of the terrain. So I believe Gengar might be forced to switch out here. You know, Tapu Bulu coming in isn't that bad. It can do some good damage, especially since it's not intimidated, but instead Gengar protects. Fails, actually.
Ooh, that's dangerous. The gamble might be paying off here for Tomohiro. Once again, we see the Electrium Z activate. The Z power will rise through Tapu Koko, and it will launch a huge Gigavolt Havoc. Gengar will be the target. It can't go into that Landorus. It wouldn't be hitting anything at all. Gengar will be taking a huge bolt of electricity, and this might be a massive shock to Emilio.
Yeah, big damage coming out here. The KO on that Mega Gengar. Pokemon so key to Emilio. Now it's going to come down to his last two Pokemon. Maybe this signifies that Tapu Bulu was not actually hiding in the back here. So, oh boy, Emilio looks defeated here as Landorus uses U-turn.
Unfortunate time of events for Emilio. There might be a way for him to battle back, but it looks like he's struggling to think of one. Tapu Bulu is the final Pokemon coming out here, so it will overwrite the Electric's terrain with its Grassy Surge, powering up the all-important Wood Hammer attack. Landorus going for the Stone Age, and it avoids Tapu Bulu coming in for free. No damage dealt there. It would have been a resisted hit, and Tapu Bulu has very stout defenses. Look at those arms, the shoulder. Those shoulders are massive.
Very bulky.
Yeah,
it's a strong Pokemon.
It's been in the gym, but Landorus now coming in. It's going to drop an all-important Intimidate onto the opposing Landorus. Now, the only Pokemon with an Intimidate on it, and Tapu Bulu in a position where it can start throwing off big wood hammers here. Tapu Koko obviously will be the first Pokemon to move, though.
It's not over yet. I mean, Emilio just had an easier path. He's still in it. Tapu Bulu can do some big damage to the Landorus there, and Tapu Koko does use Hidden Power, but we know that it's not enough to actually get the KO.
But it's going on to the Tapu Bulu. This is a switch round. Wood Hammer, the second move to go in. Onto the Landorus. Big damage. Huge knockout. Emilio Forbes.
And here comes the Tectonic Rage.
Oh, Emilio Forbes taking the knockout onto the Landorus. The Tectonic Rage comes out here. Single target attack. I imagine behind that bandana, Emilio Forbes cannot contain his smile. Landorus has got his angry eyes on, and Tapu Koko going to be the final victim for Emilio Forbes on his way to top 4 at the 2018 World Championships.
Big win here for Emilio. Amazing play from Emilio, and he is showing that he is playing to the best of his capabilities. He can't even believe it.
KO.
A critical hit on top, that's just gravy.
That's what you want when you're going through to top 4. You guys might not be able to hear it over the microphones, but the atmosphere is electric here. The North American fans having an amazing time. Look at those cheering faces. Dwee, what an electrifying game. Or more likely to say, what a big Woodhammer game. Yeah?
Yeah, it wasn't Tapu Koko, otherwise we'd go for the clear shocking, right?
Yeah, I think so. But that proves to show Mega Gengar still a big threat here at the World Championships, especially when piloted by such an incredibly intelligent player as Emilio Forbes.
Yeah, and again, going back to game 1, Emilio just did such a great job controlling the board, really putting Tomohiro on the back foot, back against the wall, not really being able to do much damage at all, really showing that Emilio was a very great defensive player, played to all of his possible outs out there in game 1, didn't even rely on the Perish Song, and then finally brought it in game 2 to put so much pressure on Cresselia and Heatran, two Pokemon that could have been very problematic. I mean, you know, Cresselia could have dealt big damage over to that Mega Gengar, but, you know, instead, hey, guess what? You have 3 turns, do something about it. And again, like I said, you know, the ability to rotate your Pokemon like that with the U-turns and the switching and keeping that lock up just pretty much meant that, you know, Gengar wasn't taking any damage. And again, that sequence that Emilio actually went to in order to, you know, that Incineroar was slower, or, you know, it was going to move before that Heatran in Trick Room. And, you know, Emilio used that turn instead of just double protecting there and just going for the U-turn later on. He thought to himself, all right, this is what I need to do. I need to protect Gengar here, switch in my Landorus that can also U-turn out, and that's going to be slower. All right, if it gets KO'd, whatever, I keep a lockup. But, you know, it was just the positioning and the sequence of events that Emilio took advantage of.
I'm so glad you said that, Dwee, because you mentioned before the match starts that these Perish trap teams, the combination of Perish Song and Shadow Tag, trapping opponents in, you have to have such a high level of intelligence and ability to maneuver around the board. And it's also an awareness game as well. You need to understand what can happen on the turn and think, what is the best move that I can make to cover all options? And compared to, so for example, in any other VGC team, obviously you want to be aware of all situations and make the path of least resistance, the thing that's going to give you the best net gain, but also take the least amount of damage. But with the Gengar Perish trap teams, it's disastrous if you get one thing wrong, because that could throw the whole sequence out of sync. And then you've lost the entire game and you have to restart again. And Emilio showing how thoughtful he was about the situation that Tomohiro was putting in him, and also like making sure that he was adjusting to everything that Tomohiro could do. Tomohiro, congratulations for making it to the top 8 of the World Championships. You've been an amazing competitor. Unfortunately for you, Emilio was just a little bit too strong this time.
Yeah, and again, top 8 at the World Championships, that's pretty big. You know?
That's incredible.
That is more than I could ever hope for. Jay, I think you'll be up there someday, man.
I hope so. I mean, if all these top players just kind of leave, then I might have a chance. Guys, we are going to be able to show you the bracket with all the Pokemon and their trainers who are going to be appearing in the top 4. You can see Yusei Matsuno is going to go up against Emilio Forbes of the United States of America, and Paul Ruiz is playing Niels Dunlop, who defeated Arash Omati. What an incredible turn of events, Dwee.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a new world champ crowned here at the 2018 World Championships. Is it going to be Japan? Is it going to be America? Is it going to be Ecuador? Is it going to be Sweden? You know, that's so crazy to see, you know, being able to see maybe it's Ecuador's first, maybe it's LATAM's first ever World Championship, let alone Ecuador's first World Championship, or is it Sweden's?
LATAM were not able to take any of the international championships this season, but they might take the big one here, and that would be huge. What a storyline for Paul Ruiz. He's back where he was last year in the top 4 of the World Championships, and he is so close to making it to that final, progressing even further.
And Nils actually advances past the top 8 of the World Championships from his top 8 finish last year.
It's beautiful. We are seeing so many different storylines culminate here at the 2018 World Championships. Both Emilio and Yusei are going to be extremely strong competitors as well. They will not be people that you want to sleep on in that final. Guys, we are so excited to be able to talk to Emilio and find out about his game in the top 8. Let's go, Anna.
Thanks so much, guys. I am here with your winner. How does that feel to be a winner in the top 8?
It feels honestly great. I got really lucky in game 2, but I think I played pretty well game 1, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What did you do so well in game 1?
Game 1, I just positioned really well, and I guess I caught his mistakes, so I think I just positioned really well and exploited his mistakes, and yeah.
And what was the luck that you got?
He missed Heat Wave like 2 times, and he missed Stone Edge, so I got bailed out pretty hard.
Is this what you expected from this match at all?
Not at all. I thought it was going to be really tough, and I wasn't going to get lucky, so I'm just happy with the result.
Well, tell us a little bit about your play, what you're doing right now, your strategy, and how you think it's going to fare moving forward.
It's mostly based around Gengar and trapping things, which is really solid because Gengar is broken. And yeah, I think it's kind of an unbeatable strategy if you play it right. So yeah, Gengar's really good.
So you're going to win then if you play it right?
Hopefully.
What's it going to take to play it right?
Not double protecting when you already protected the first turn.
Okay, great. Well, how does it feel now to be at this point in the tournament? What does that mean to you as a player in your overall kind of career?
It feels really, I guess I haven't really felt it yet. It's kind of just surreal. Like my friend Edu, he got top 4 at Worlds in 2016, and it's just kind of cool to be up in the same position as him.
I bet there are a lot of friends who have kind of been helping you and cheering you on. Do you want to say hi to any of them?
Yeah, sure. Shout out to, first of all, Gazpacho. I love you guys. Thank you for supporting me so much. Shout out to the Paris Rap group. You guys helped me so much too. Roel especially. Free Marsh and Free Stratos. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Congratulations again. We will see you as you continue playing, and we look forward to those matches. But right now we're going to head back to our desk for the casters.
Top 8 is done, Dwee.
You okay?
How are we going to progress now? There has to be top 4, right?
There has to be top 4. We need to determine who our finalists are.
I'm so tired, Dwee. That was an exceptional game. My heart is still racing. I don't know how I'm going to contain myself. We're going to find who's going to be in the World Championships finals later on tonight on the main stream.
There's still 2 more matches to come.
2 more matches.
Is your heart going to be able to handle this, Jay?
I don't know. I might need to lie down, Dwee. This has been an incredible day of Pokemon action, but it's not the end. As we mentioned, there's still top 4 to come tonight and all-important Championship Sunday tomorrow.
The best day of the year. I've already told Aaron that it's my favorite day of the year. I mark it.
Get out birthdays.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's Championship Sunday. Pokemon World Championship Sunday is my favorite day of the year. There's just so much excitement. 6 champions to be crowned tomorrow. But again, it's not over tonight, right?
No. If you guys go over to twitch.tv/Pokemon, the main stream will be holding down all of the top 4 games as we take through to see who'll be our finalists tomorrow. Please let us know who you're rooting for using the hashtag #PlayPokemon. You can follow along with all of our updates on twitter.com/Pokemon2. Facebook.com/Pokemon is for further updates about the season going ahead, but also all the events that we're running at the same time. YouTube.com/Pokemon is a great resource to be able to look at the VODs from all the most recent tournaments. You can check out the North American International Championships from earlier in the season, or go back and look at the last year's World Championships if you want a taste just before we go into Championship Sunday tomorrow. Instagram.com/Pokemon will give you an inside sneak peek to what the World Championships have been like this weekend. And also, check out that Pikachu plush. Can't stress it enough. That Pikachu plush is amazing.
It is amazing. This whole event has been amazing, Jay. It's been such an honor to be able to cast with you. It's been an honor to be able to hold down this video game dedicated stream with you.
It's been an incredible honor, Dwee. Like, we don't get to do this very often, but when we do, we go big, we party hard. The Music City has really given us a song and dance for all the VGC 18th action that you could want, but it's not over yet. Please, guys, check out the main stream shortly. We'll be going to top 4 over there. From Dwee and myself, it's going to be a good night. We'll see you tomorrow for Championship Sunday, but go watch that top 4.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 2018 Pokemon World Championships here in Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Evan Lattin. I'm joined here at the desk to finish off the day here for the Video Game Championships. My good friend, Aaron Zhang. Aaron, we just saw that lovely video about the event experience here at Worlds. It can only come close to capturing the real magic of being here in this stadium amongst all of this packed house of Pokemon fans.
Yeah, this is easily one of the most exciting World Championships, especially on the video game side in memory, and I feel like we had a really incredible top cut bracket, but we are down to the final 4 competitors of the day, and after tonight, we'll only have 2 remaining finalists for Championship Sunday tomorrow.
That's absolutely right. We have cut through a huge swath of Pokemon trainers down to our final 4 competitors. Paul Ruiz from Ecuador will be facing off against Nils Dunlop from Sweden. And also on the other side of the bracket, we have Yusei Matsuno from Japan facing off against Emilio Forbes from the United States of America. So we are here in the top 4 with 4 separate countries represented, and any one of these trainers could take home the title.
Yeah, 4 separate countries. The right side of the bracket with Paul and Nils, both of them actually made it to the top cut last year. Of course, Paul making it to top 4 last year, and here he is with another top 4 appearance, so he will be getting another one of those coveted Pikachu trophies, but I know he's hungrier and wants more. Nils, on the other hand, having top cut this tournament last year, really a bunch of really great accomplishments in the seniors divisions, and then he aged up to the masters division and has been one of the more dominant players, especially from Europe. So incredible job there. And on the left side of the bracket, Emilio, the only American remaining, looking to join Ray Rizzo and Wolfie Glick as the only 2 American champions in the masters division ever. And boy, he's been on fire today with this play in his team.
Yeah, absolutely. But to get through that, to get through to the championship, he will have to go through Yusei Matsuno first. And he has been putting on a clinic with some surprising and interesting text from some Pokemon that either we haven't seen in a very long time, or Pokemon that are being used in a very different way than we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I was really ecstatic when I heard that he actually qualified for the World Championships, because I was able to play him in the Oceania International Championships last year, where he ran perhaps one of the craziest teams I've ever seen. From what I remember, there was Frostfang on it, there was Crocodile on it, there was a lot of shenanigans, and all kinds of either Pokemon that you normally see with movesets you never expect, or just Pokemon you never see. So it's not a surprise that he's brought a more eccentric team to this World Championship, and I'm really excited to be able to commentate one of his games.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting to look at these 2 sides of the bracket here. You know, Yusei and Emilio haven't really put up giant performances in the past. You know, Emilio has been fairly consistent, but sort of just flying just under that radar of having a breakout tournament. Yusei has not been one of the top Japanese players who everyone across the globe knows, like our former world champions. But both of them now making it here to the top 4 are looking to make an impact and make a name for themselves. Well, you compare that to the other side of the bracket, like you mentioned, both players, Nils and Paul, making it to the top cut last year, and Paul, of course, already making it to the top 4. You kind of have a weird dynamic where the right side of the bracket is experienced, has been here before, and the left side of the bracket is just trying to break through.
Yeah, absolutely, but also incredible players in their right. I think Emilio, I believe, got Date 2 at the North American International Championships last year, got 2nd place at a regional championship this year, and he's actually been playing since 2013. I remember playing him way back in the day. So he's a player that has a lot of experience throughout the years, and like you mentioned, kind of flies under the radar, but perhaps one of the more underrated North American players. And this truly is his big breakout tournament, and he's not done quite yet.
Yeah, we will definitely be watching for him in this next match. Yusei Matsuno impressed on his stream appearances previously, so definitely looking forward to watching that match. I think it's going to be an incredible head-to-head there. And any one of these 4 trainers is in a strong position to become the world champion. I mean, we think about where we started back on Friday, yesterday, with players playing in day 1, having to go through 9 rounds of Swiss. Now here again, another 7 rounds of Swiss, plus the top 16 match, plus the top 8 match. That's already 18 rounds of Pokemon that they would have to play, and now they're only 2 rounds away
Absolutely.
It's so much more attainable now, and you have to feel like these players are feeling the pressure. I mean, you've been in this situation before where it just starts feeling close. It feels tangible. It feels like you can actually achieve it, even if all you came to this tournament with a goal of making day 2 or just making cut. Once you're here, now it starts to feel real.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just 2 sets away from becoming best in the world and world champion. And I think one of the things that's been really exciting about this tournament specifically is the variety of teams that we've seen. I mean, just looking at these 2 teams, we've already seen both players play on stream, but some really, really cool stuff being used here. Emilio with the Latias, which we've seen earlier on stream, the Mega Gengar as well, and a Politoed, which is kind of an old familiar face, and of course Yusei with some really interesting stuff, the Gothitelle, which, fun fact, if this Gothitelle won the World Championship, it would be the 3rd Gothitelle with the 3rd ability to win a World Championship, which is
maybe
really
the only Pokemon that can take credit for that.
Yeah, you know, there already are many Pokemon that have the potential to do that, but imagine Gothitelle of all Pokemon doing that, having won in 2011 and 2014 on Ray Rizzo and Sejong Park's team. So here we've got a really fun one. I think, you know, the Snorlax that we've seen from Yusei's and also a little bit more unconventional. So lots of cool stuff being used here, and I think once again, the last time we had an Open Dex format, it was in 2015, where it felt like I think a lot of people often remember that year for being stale because that year the Japanese dominated with a lot of these Kangaskhan Cresselia teams,
yeah.
But Top Cut was smaller back then, and if you look at the 9 through 16 teams that year, a lot more diversity. This time around, we had a larger Top Cut. Also didn't feel like there was one really strong dominating team, and there was just so much diversity in the entire bracket, and that's not any different here between our top 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of these competitors, and all 4 of these competitors, rather, across the board, using very different styles, using very different strategies. Emilio's Latias is a Pokemon that I'm really interested in watching play out during this game. You know, it's not one of those Pokemon that we had highlighted before the World Championships as being, you know, a top-tier threat, similar to the Gothitelle on Yusei's side. But that's just the thing about the World Championships. You know, you can prepare for the standards, but what usually ends up making it this deep into a tournament is a team that, you know, even if it looks a little bit like a standard team, has those techs, has those sort of rogue elements that allow you to outplay Pokemon trainers who have not spent the hours and hours to learn every single matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think no one really could have come into this tournament preparing for the specific Gothitelle set that Yusei is running. And
yeah, you may be prepared for a different Gothitelle entirely, and now you're up against this beast, and you're like, how do I control it?
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things is when you're this deep in a tournament, it's likely that your opponent has gotten some information about your team, maybe has seen your stream games, and so a lot of the times by this point in the tournament, you're coming on kind of equal ground against your opponent, but it doesn't make it any more difficult to go up against, especially when they're running really eccentric sets that you perhaps have never had any practice against.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we keep coming back to Yusei's team because it just is, it's such a head fake of a team. You know, you look at these Pokemon, and if you have played this game for a while and you see a core of Gothitelle, Snorlax, and Amoonguss, that just screams, I'm running hard Trick Room, I'm going to use Trick Room, and I'm going to spore everything, and you're not going to be able to do anything because I've trapped you with my Gothitelle. And Yusei just blows that entirely out of the water, and I think it's left, you know, we saw in his stream matches, it just left people totally unprepared and off guard for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really just can't wait to dive into this, honestly, but I think Emilio's showed some really cool techs on his Mega Gengar as well, and it will be exciting to see the Mega Gengar go up against the Gothitelle. You know, this Gothitelle, not the Shadow Tech variant that we've seen throughout the years, but Mega Gengar and Gothitelle, probably the 2 strongest Shadow Tech users of all time. So kind of fun to see them face up against each other, even if this Gothitelle isn't that variant specifically. You can still switch out even with Gengar Shadow Tag up.
Absolutely. And we are just about ready to get into our top 4 match here. Let's toss it on down to the main stage to meet our players.
I am so excited to introduce to you more of your top 4 VG Masters in the Pokemon World Championship. Are you excited? I think you are. I appreciate you. Now I want you to use that excitement to welcome to the stage first, from the United States, Emilio Forbes! And to challenge from Japan, Yusei Matsuno! shake hands and take your seats. If I can tell anything from this crowd, it's that this is going to be a great match. Commentators, what do you think?
I could not agree with you more, Anna. One of the classic rivalries of the Pokemon video game championships, Japan versus the United States of America. Here, Yusei Matsuno versus Emilio Forbes, representing their countries, and the final members of each of their countries to still be in the top cut. So the winner of this match will make it into the top cut, or to the finals, and have the chance to take home the trophy. And you see Yusei Matsuno on your screen there, top 32 finishes in 2 Japanese national championships, and now a semifinals appearance at the World Championships, and so close to making it into the finals.
Yeah, you know, the Japanese national qualification system is quite brutal. So to even be able to make it to nationals there is quite a feat in itself. And this year specifically, and more recently, there have been more invites that have been given out to players to the World Championships. So I think this may be his first time competing at the World Championships, and he certainly has proven himself. Incredible finish with an incredible team.
Yeah, and he will be facing off against Emilio Forbes of the United States of America, our host country here. As you can see, regional finalists, top 8 at the Anaheim Open, the Nashville Open happening tomorrow as well, and North American International Championships last season, top 16. Both of these players really having a breakout tournament at the World Championships, and there's no better time to start getting hot and start going on a streak.
Yeah, absolutely. And Emilio has had some pretty notable accomplishments as well. I mean, he was just 1 game short of making that top 8 at the North American International Championships last year. So it's definitely been one of the stronger players in the country. But here he is as the last remaining American, as we are going to get into team preview of this top 4 set.
Let's go. It is the top 4 of the Pokemon World Championships. Yusei Matsuno versus Emilio Forbes. Those are our teams. Again, Yusei using that fake out of a team. Gothitelle and Snorlax, Amoonguss, Incineroar, Salamence, and Tapu Koko. And Emilio running the Tapu Bulu, Latias, Incineroar, Gengar, Therian, Landorus Therian form, and Politoed.
So yeah, just looking into team preview, I feel like for Emilio's end, Incineroar, Latias, and Gengar all can be incredibly important Pokemon. Incineroar because of its ability to intimidate, also of its ability to knock off Snorlax potentially, getting rid of that crucial item that it does carry. Latias potentially can one-shot that Salamence, and most Salamences nowadays don't carry Dragon-type attacks. And Gengar, of course, can do a lot of damage to Gothitelle and to the Tapu Koko. Politoed, probably not a Pokemon you really want to bring too much here, unless you're going for the Perish Song strategy, which I think we have seen Emilio use throughout the course of this tournament.
Yeah, we have seen a little bit of that, but it is time now to get into battle. Both of these players have chosen their Pokemon that they are going to use for this most important turn 0 of the semifinals. Game 1, again, this will be a best-of-3 set, but here we go. Latias and Gengar will be Yusei's leads, and he will be facing off against these... Snorlax and Gothitelle are Yusei's lead, facing off against Emilio's Latias and the Gengar.
So a fun combination here immediately from Yusei, probably the 2 most innovative Pokemon on his team. We have seen that Snorlax is that Choice Band variant, but Emilio, by leading the Gengar, at least dissuades the Snorlax from self-destructing immediately on that turn 1. However, a high horsepower most likely will still be able to knock out that Gengar. Latias, on the other hand, pretty bulky, but can't really do too much damage to neither of these Pokemon out on the field right now.
We've seen so much damage coming out of that Snorlax over the course of the tournament as well. Even if you feel comfortable against a normal Snorlax, this is no normal Snorlax, and those double edges hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see Gothitelle going for something just like a Trick Room here. Latias does want to switch out because it really doesn't do anything right now. Its damage output isn't that great. It's going to take way too much in return. Yeah,
Latias unable to do anything, so switching out in favor of the Incineroar, which will get an Intimidate off onto Snorlax, but the crowd recognizing it's activating that competitive on Gothitelle. Gonna boost up the special attack of that Pokemon. Of course, Incineroar fine with that, as its Dark typing matches up quite favorably against the Psychic type. Mega Gengar, though, going to go ahead and Mega Evolve and set up a substitute here on turn 1. It will be the high horsepower coming out from Snorlax to break the substitute. So Gengar may have thought it would be safe hiding underneath that substitute. Now wide open and exposed to the Gothitelle, which sets up Trick Room.
Yeah, so Substitute definitely helps out a little bit there, but this Gothitelle did just get that boost, and now we have 2 Pokemon that immediately threaten the Gengar this next turn. So I think Emilio's probably going to want to consider switching out that Gengar and either just going for a potential Fake Out here with Incineroar, or maybe you just go for a knockoff for some damage here. The main issue is if Yusei calls this correctly and perhaps goes for a high horsepower into the Incineroar, it is intimidated, but it still will take a lot of damage. So this Gothitelle Snorlax lead really paying off immediately, and I think Emilio is in a semi-tricky position. He navigated that first turn well. I think the Incineroar switch in is great here, but with Trick Room up, he's still got a lot to outmaneuver around. Now, we do see the switch out, so we'll see what comes back in.
Yeah, Gengar will switch out. Now the Trick Room is up. Latias back in, hoping to dodge any kind of high horsepowers from Snorlax and avoid major damage coming out from the Gothitelle. It will be the Shattered Psyche coming out from the competitive boosted Gothitelle. That's going to be a whole lot of damage coming out.
Yeah, Latias is, however, a very specially defensive Pokemon, so I expect this to take it pretty well, but we'll see. Maybe I underestimate the strength of competitive Gothitelle after the boost.
Well, too many people have underestimated competitive Gothitelle and paid for it. Over 50% damage onto Latias.
I was
that
gonna
for
say,
especially defensive?
Yeah, no, that's definitely me underrating it slightly. I thought it would survive with maybe just over 50%, but that's a lot of damage there. That's a nice switch out by Emilio. You know, prevents the Gengar from getting knocked out, but there's still multiple turns of Trick Room. The Fake Out onto the Snorlax means that Snorlax can't get a high horsepower off, but you got to question whether the Snorlax was targeting the Incineroar there or the Gengar there. Either way, Yusei so far has gotten a lot of consistent damage off, and even though he's intimidated, he can still just kind of launch attacks out.
Well, looks like Emilio is just going to try and stall out this this Trick Room a little bit with a Protect on Latias.
Wow.
High horsepower comes through onto Incineroar, that Intimidate, making sure that Incineroar stays sort of healthy there. U-turning right out of that Gothitelle, going to go back to Emilio, trying to figure out, shuffle through his Pokeballs and figure out which Pokemon can actually match up against this Snorlax-Gothitelle combination. Mega Gengar, which has retreated from the battle a couple times before, is now back out on the field and ready to go.
Yeah, we did see the Gothitelle target down that Latias. Double up into that Gengar slot could have been deadly, especially if you know, that was just another Psychic type attack coming out. But I think Emilio has been maneuvering this quite well. He knows that he needs to sell out Trick Room right now. If you ever let your opponent get too many attacks off and a knockout, then it can be really, really deadly. But now the Gengar traps the Snorlax back in. We'll probably just go for a Protect this turn, as Latias actually going to switch out for some offensive positioning here.
Yeah, Emilio just switching out his Pokemon, shuffling the Intimidates off onto that Snorlax. But again, these Intimidates just keep boosting Gothitelle. Too many players are underestimating the power of that competitive boost in favor of, you know, attacking the Snorlax and the physical attackers with the Intimidate. High horsepower will hit into the Protect here, so Emilio will be protecting that Gengar this time around. Same, and Psychic not affecting the Incineroar on the switch-in.
Yeah, so, you know, Yusei's had 2 turns where he could have potentially doubled up and predicted a switch-in to come out, but not knocking out the Gengar last turn, not being able to knock out the Incineroar this past turn with a high horsepower prediction into that slot means that Emilio's in a better spot than what it looked like a couple of turns ago. He's been able to stall out this Trick Room pretty effectively, but there's a Helping Hand.
Helping Hand coming out from the Gothitelle. No, it looks like the Fake Out into the Snorlax, though. That's a free turn for Emilio. Can he make it count? With this Shadow Ball, connects onto the Gothitelle.
And that's a knockout.
That's it. Gothitelle goes down. It's a competitive Pokemon, but sometimes you have to know when to quit. And Gothitelle going back to Yusei. And now Emilio just about successfully stalled out this Trick Room as well.
Yeah, excellent play there by Emilio. He most likely was predicting the Gengar to swap back out into that Latias, you know, saying surely it's not going to take a high horsepower or a Psychic. So trying to probably dunk on that Incineroar with the Helping Hand combination, but excellent call there, gets the knockout there, and what seemed like a really strong lead for Yusei suddenly has kind of turned the tides back, especially with the Snorlax being at -2 attack. Salamence, however, a pretty good Pokemon to come out right now. You have to consider that Emilio's Pokemon are relatively heavily damaged at this point, but yeah, that was some masterful play to get out of that Trick Room.
Yeah, super risky to go for that Helping Hand while Emilio had Fake Out pressure up. Did not pay off. Mega Gengar has to switch out for Emilio in favor of Landorus. Now that Gothitelle is off the field, Emilio is free to cycle all of these Intimidates onto Yusei's physical attackers, and definitely going to make as much use of it as possible. Salaman's going to go ahead and Mega Evolve to boost its stats, get that Aerial Aid ability, and start dealing some more damage. But with those Intimidates being able to get shuffled, going to have to do these Dragon Dances to stay at neutral.
Yeah, it at least gives it the speed advantage here, and the U-turn allows Emilio to consistently cycle out those Intimidates as well. I mean, there's a reason why Incineroar and Landers are two of the best Pokemon in the format and two of the most used ones, because of their ability to cycle and Intimidates, and that really heavily shuts down the Salamence. Latias
back.
Yeah, and Snorlax is in a really tricky position right now.
Locked
pretty much
high horsepower.
Pretty much forced to switch out this next turn because it is choice banded. So this gives Emilio a lot of room to work with. Now you know that Snorlax slot isn't going to get an attack off. You know that the Salamence is still at neutral attack after that Intimidate. So now you have to decide, okay, do I stay in with this Latias? Do I maybe switch back out into Incineroar to get another Intimidate off? And what kind of moveset does this Landorus have? You'd assume that you'd want to start getting damage off against this Salamence because it is pretty tricky, but maybe you go for something like a Z move into this Snorlax slot, knowing that whatever's coming in will take a lot of damage because there's only one Pokemon that, you know, is not affected by the Z move, and that's Salamence. That's already out on the field.
Absolutely. Well, Latias is the one that's going to switch out in favor of the Incineroar. Just going to keep cycling these Intimidates onto the physical attackers of Yusei. Again, without Gothitelle on the field, Emilio is not going to get punished for that. Snorlax will switch out into his own Incineroar, so Yusei able to launch his own Intimidates back onto the Landorus and the Incineroar of Emilio's side. But like you mentioned, that's a risky switch-in when you have a Landorus on the other side of the field. Frustration will deal some damage, but not enough thanks to all of those Intimidates. Now Emilio gets to heal right back up with its berry and put itself in very strong position for future turns. Looks like we're actually going to see a Rock Tomb coming out from the Landorus, which will actually start negating the speed boost as well. So, you know, it seems like Emilio is just not a fan of Dragon Dance, wants to drop your speed, drop your attack.
Yeah, and not being able to knock out the Incineroar there goes a long way for Emilio as well. Being able to heal all the way back up with that berry. Now, there is a possibility of potentially going for the Z move there. Would have dunked on Incineroar on the switch in, but yeah, tough to say when you don't know the last Pokemon and you want to maybe conserve it to deal with the Snorlax. So, you know, still a really great play there from Emilio, and I think Yusei probably going for his best play. Could have gone for a potential other Dragon Dance with that Salamence, but just wanting to get some damage on the board. I think Emilio's maintained his board position pretty well right now, and this Landers is going to be pretty difficult to deal with, but Emilio does get a turn to at least fake out here.
Well, looks like Yusei will be switching out the Salamence to bring in the Snorlax again without any of those Intimidate drops. Fake out from the Incineroar on Emilio's side onto the Snorlax, and a Rock Tomb onto the Snorlax as well. Emilio not switching out either of his Intimidators, which means that Snorlax will be at full attack for this next turn.
Yeah, the knockoff going into the Incineroar there instead, not what I expected, but trying to catch either a Latias or a Gengar on the switch-in, which certainly would have knocked either out. So you can respect the play from Yusei for sure, right? He's already behind in this game and
has to make something happen.
Exactly, and right now you know that Emilio wants to cycle in the Intimidates, but great play again by Emilio, just deciding not to switch out, saying, and you know, especially now because, exactly. Now, the scary thing here is you do have to worry about the Snorlax. The Snorlax's damage output is really, really incredible, but perhaps a double up into it will just knock it out. However, Snorlaxes do often run, if they're choice banned, the thick fan. By switching in here, you do potentially negate a Z move or just taking any ground type damage.
Yeah, bringing back these Salamence just in case there is a Z move coming out from that Landorus or an Earthquake, protecting Snorlax as much as possible. Here comes the cycle. Emilio going to go ahead and U-turn out the Incineroar in favor of one of his final two remaining Pokemon. Latias and Mega Gengar do not want to take knockoffs from this Incineroar though, so either one is sort of risky here if Yusei decides to continue going for the knockoff into that slot. And it looks like going for the low kick. No damage.
Yeah, I mean, Emilio's just been getting so many free switches in this game. I mean, the timer is actually running pretty low for both players, but it feels like this is, both players are basically just vying for board positioning right now. So nice play on Emilio's end not to commit to a Z move that last turn or go for a ground type attack at all. The Salamence, however, is now back at neutral, but it still has to worry about Latias, which can potentially just go for an Ice Beam or a Dragon type attack to knock it out.
All right, Yusei switching back in the Snorlax while Salamence protects itself. Yeah, you're totally right. They are definitely trying to fight for board position here, but Emilio has so many more options, and he also has the Tectonic Rage coming out. you better believe that's probably not targeting the Salamence.
Yeah, that is probably going to be going to the Snorlax. That should be a knockout there. So Yusei will be down to a 2-4 position, but I think what he's going for is basically to try to sweep with the Salamence, right? You cycle the Incineroar back in, go for a fake out onto the Latias, go for a Dragon Dance, and the Landorus certainly won't be doing too much damage, especially after it's lost Intimidate. But Snorlax hangs on.
Ooh, that is a bulky Snorlax. A couple of Intimidates must stuck on that Landorus on Emilio's side. So Snorlax gets in, is still around, but at 30 hit points, probably not going to be super threatening. And that's not great for Yusei because he has no option here to stop that Latias from just firing off an attack into the Salamence.
Yeah, I mean, Salamence, depending on how it's trained, should normally outspeed Latias, so you can just go for the knockout here, and then you're kind of forced to still target down the Snorlax because if you don't knock it out, then it'll get a huge attack off against your Landorus here. So Salamence, however, actually going to opt to switch out.
Yeah, not going to take that risk there. Switching out the Salamence for Incineroar. Wants to have that fake out pressure. Going to get another Intimidate off onto Emilio's Landorus, making sure that it's not going to be super effective at dealing physical damage. We do see an Ice Beam coming out from the Latias, dealing negligible damage to that Incineroar on the switch end, of course. And it looks like we are going to see an Earthquake popping out from the Landorus, catching the Incineroar on the switch. Going to pick up the KO onto the Snorlax. And of course, avoiding Latias with that Levitate ability. So Incineroar switches in, intimidated the Landorus. Salamence is going to be able to get out on the field with fake out pressure. But this time, Incineroar took a little bit of extra damage that maybe Yusei wasn't hoping for.
Yeah, I think maybe Yusei was hoping that the Tectonic Rage would knock out the Snorlax, and then now he's basically in the position he was hoping for a turn earlier. But perhaps the Salamence is trained so that it doesn't guarantee to outspeed Latias, so he doesn't want to risk that because otherwise he'll just feign to an Ice Beam and he'll lose the game. But he's only down to 30 seconds, and his win con at this point is basically to sweep with the Salamence. So he's got to go for a fake out Dragon Dance, I would assume, this turn. But I think you can just slow down the Salamence continuously with Rock Tunes right now.
Yeah, Incineroar switching in from Emilio's side means that the Dragon Dances are not going to be as effective either. Ability to switch the Intimidates, to use the Rock Tomb to neutralize any of the Dragon Dances could be a big deal, but looks like we're just going to keep seeing some switches. Mega Gengar now out on the field for Emilio in favor of the Landorus, so that Emilio can switch that back in and get another Intimidate. But Mega Salamence has to go for these Dragon Dances, but it looks like at this point, all Salamence is going to get are speed boosts.
Yeah, great switch there by Emilio, knowing that, okay, Incineroar gets the turn to fake out. It's almost definitely going to fake out the Landorus, so I'm just going to get another free opportunity to cycle in these Intimidates. And you can see Yusei only has 24 seconds left on his time, so even if he's able to sweep through, I don't think, honestly, he'll have enough time to do so because he's going to need some boost. And that's one of the best ways you can end the game. A Perish Song comes out there with only 2 Pokemon remaining on Yusei's end, and with the Intimidates being able to cycle through, that most certainly should seal up this game. Yeah,
Yusei is now going to have to defeat all of Emilio's Pokemon within 3 turns.
Yeah, and I think...
and within 24 seconds.
Pretty straightforward here, I think, for Emilio here. You protect the Gengar, probably switch out the Incineroar into the Landorus, and then maybe protect the Landorus, cycle in the Incineroar back in, and fake out. And I think Yusei definitely should be, or Emilio should definitely be winning this game, and I think he recognizes that. We are going to go into a game 2.
Emilio Forbes, 4-0 victory over Yusei Matsuno in that first round. Super strong showing there from the American player, dealing a lot of damage, controlling the pace of the match in that first game. And if Japan is going to make it into the finals, they are going to need more out of Yusei, and he's going to need to fight back because Emilio really seems like he had his number there.
Yeah, you know, it was funny because Yusei, I felt like, had a fantastic lead in board positioning, but then he just ended up he wasn't able to call any of those switches, and I think when you have a lead with Trick Room, you really still need to be able to extend onto it because once Trick Room expires, then
you need
suddenly
a huge lead after it expires.
Exactly, yeah. So the fact that I think Emilio basically got almost every free switch, and you know, you can think about those first 2 turns where the Psychic went into the Incineroar, and then later on in the end when Yusei's Incineroar first went for the knockoff and Incineroar didn't knock it out. And then it revealed it actually had low kick, but then that turn Incineroar switched out. So it was like 4 switches where Yusei potentially could have gotten, but wasn't able to nail them. And I mean, obviously that's really difficult, and that's one of the limitations of Choice Band Snorlax as well, where once you lock yourself and commit yourself to a move, you can't do anything more. But, you know, he can't give up, and I think if you are Yusei, you got to go back to the board and be like, okay, you know, I actually had pretty good positioning throughout. It was more just that I didn't call any of my opponent's predictions or switches. So maybe I play a little bit more aggressively now and double target things as opposed to splitting 1-1.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are just about ready to get into game 2 here of our semifinals match here in Nashville, Tennessee. Emilio Forbes from the United States of America has a lead in the set right now, and he's up against Yusei Matsuno, and both of these players will be playing for the privilege of facing Paul Ruiz in the finals of the video game championships. Paul Ruiz, Latin America, has made it to the finals of the World Championships. We'll have to see if the United States of America or Japan are going to face him off.
Yeah, wow, so exciting. And here we go. We are going to see an adjustment. No Snorlax this time. It's going to be the Incineroar right from the get-go. And the other side, we are going to see Incineroar and Gengar. So big Intimidate immediately coming off on both sides. You know,
yeah.
Gothitelle being able to take a boost, but still has to worry about a lot of damage. A Shadow Ball and a knockoff probably just knocks out the Gothitelle anyway.
Yeah, the Incineroar Intimidate is so much better against this Gothitelle than a Landorus Intimidate, which is what we saw allow Yusei to really take control of